Chapter 201. Watching the dozen or so people talking and laughing along the way, Harry, who was looking at the gathering place from afar, was fascinated and wanted to have more friends. But looking at Ron in front of him, Harry was completely speechless. Harry was in a good mood after watching a wonderful Quidditch match today. But he was pulled out by Ron just after dinner. According to Ron, Yang Tian and his friends will gather on the shore of Black Lake tonight, and there may be a major conspiracy, so he wants to go with him to scout. Harry was confused. What was going on? He was about to say something, but Ron was stubborn and said, "If we are friends, we can talk about it after the surveillance is over." Just because of this sentence, Harry accompanied Ron by the lake to enjoy the breeze for several hours. "Ron, what do you say that we should join Yang Tian's study group?" Harry asked haltingly, his eyes evasive as he watched everyone go away. "What? Are you kidding? Harry, I've already told you, Yang Tian is not a good person," Ron said angrily, expressing his feelings. "Ron, haven't your parents come to school? Haven't you and Yang Tian reconciled?" Harry asked. "Oh, this." Ron was speechless. After coming back to his senses, he said weakly, "That's right, but I still feel that he is not a good person. Ever since I first entered school, I have felt that this person is very annoying. Also, although the announcement has been made, the conversation between Snape and Professor Quirrell can't be fake, right? Snape's desire to enter the restricted area on the 4th floor can't be fake, right? So we still have a chance. As long as we find evidence, we can turn the tables. Then, everyone will know that we are right." Ron shouted hysterically as if he had grasped the last straw. But, even if there is something wrong with Snape, we can't conclude that it is related to Yang Tian," Harry said weakly. "We have to give it a try anyway," Ron said decisively. "Even if we check and find that he has nothing to do with it, it would be a disguised proof of his innocence, right? Besides, Harry, do you really think Snape has no problem? Don't you really want to know the truth of the matter?" Ron's last two questions really hit Harry's heart. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "Well, we can continue to monitor Snape. But, Ron, there is one thing you must promise me. Don't speak ill of Yang Tian in front of others. After all, you have already apologized in public. Don't worry, I won't say another word until I find the evidence," Ron said in a heavy tone. After the two reached a tacit understanding, they chatted casually for a few more words and then walked towards Hogwarts Castle together. In fact, everything that happened outside the Hogwarts Castle seemed secret, but in fact, behind a curtain inside the castle, two pairs of eyes had already seen it all. Snape said grimly, "Humph, it's really a trick that is not worthy of being shown on the stage. Although this huge protective shield is indeed a unique idea, it still has some shortcomings after all. Severus, let's be fair. Did you reach his level when you were 11? Dumbledore asked cheerfully. "Humph." Snape did not respond, but continued to criticize, "So many people gathered until late at night, it's simply too lawless. They disregard the Hogwarts school rules. They must be taught a lesson." Dumbledore smiled even more happily, "The children's studies are already very stressful. Proper rest and play are what they should have at this age." Snape was completely upset when he heard this. "Dumbledore, what did Yang Tian tell you to make you trust him so much? Isn't there a possibility that he used some means to deceive you?" Dumbledore said frankly, "Of course there is such a possibility, although it is really very small. What he told me allowed me to connect the information from my previous investigation completely and seamlessly. I even verified it with the Ministry of Magic and friends in pure blood families. The final result was that there was no doubt at all." Dumbledore's words made Snape feel relieved, but after thinking about it, he laughed sarcastically and said, "Even if there was a misunderstanding before, what about now? This child's ambition is obvious. He is only in the 1st grade now, but he has more than 10 people around him, and they are all outstanding in various subjects. Think about it, Dumbledore, how terrible this will be. Believe me, you will regret it in a few years, he will be the next Dark Lord. You haven't grasped the key point of the problem. In fact, he makes me feel more at ease now." Looking at Snape's questioning eyes, Dumbledore continued, "Remember the Dark Lord back then? He established an organization based on Slytherin. They have similar backgrounds and close philosophies. But look at this study group. There are wizards from Muggle families, half-blood wizards, pure-blood wizards, and even children from extreme bloodline-oriented families. They represent different backgrounds and concepts. We need such a group of people to form an organization. Who should we protect? Who should we attack? What is the organization's charter? For these children, it is precious to study and play together when they are young. But as they grow older, many practical problems will emerge. I don't believe that such a group of people with so many contradictions can be brothers and sisters in arms and live and die together. Snape carefully considered every word Dumbledore said, and finally asked uncertainly, but what if this boy really resolved their internal conflicts? Dumbledore smiled wisely upon hearing this and said, if he can really balance the interests of all parties magically, then what conflict does he have with us? Snape's expression froze, but he had nothing to say. After thinking for a while, he finally asked, so, you are sure you want to go to Albania? Yes, Severus. Dumbledore said seriously, although I don't want to admit it, this evil organization gives me a very bad feeling. Especially since it is very likely related to the royal family, it reminds me of many things in my youth. That person is very ambitious. If this organization has really been planning for so long, then the wizarding world will be very dangerous. But what will happen to the school if you leave? Quirrell's actions are becoming more and more strange. Snape said uneasily. That's why I haven't left yet. Dumbledore's expression became serious. As long as I don't leave, he won't be at ease. But no one knows whether I'm really leaving this time or just pretending. More importantly, he can't get what he desires anyway. It's destined to be an unattainable dream. Chapter 202. On this night destined to be restless, a serious meeting was taking place in a secret room in a manor in Guildford, Surrey, England. Alexander, are you sure such a big move will not provoke retaliation from the other party? Asked an old man with disheveled hair and a haggard face. Don't worry, Clement. These three women are indeed very capable, but it is also because of this that there is no need for them to explode at this time. This will not only cause shocks to this new alliance and make other members feel wary, but will also arouse suspicion from the outside world and leave a bad reputation. Alexander said confidently, so, they will definitely choose to endure, divide and disintegrate, and erode step by step. Haha, they will definitely pay the price for their stupid decision in the future. Another old man also said excitedly, women, it is better for you to stay at home and take care of your children, he he he. But at this moment, a loud noise suddenly came from the manor, followed by screams and shouts. Everyone in the secret room was also shocked by the sound. They drew their wands and rushed out of the room under the leadership of Clement. They followed the sound and found Smith family members lying on the ground everywhere, with no idea whether they were dead or alive. When they arrived at the fierce battle scene, their eyes were bloodshot. The two sides were fighting fiercely, but the Smith family was at an absolute disadvantage. At present, there were less than 30 people left, but they were under siege by hundreds of people. The invading wizards cast their spells one after another, and on average one of their tribesmen would fall every 20 seconds. Clement and his men were furious and launched an attack on the invaders from the other side. In an instant, spells flew, figures gathered, and chaos began to break out behind the invaders. The Smith family saw hope of survival. But the next moment, 3 black shadows flashed in the air and easily knocked down the 2 opponents. Assholes, it's really you. Madame Zabanai, how dare you? Clement exclaimed in disbelief, the world will see your ugly faces. You talk too much. Didn't you just swear that we would pay the price for our stupid decision? You change so quickly. As soon as Zabanai finished speaking, he threw a few more spells at Clement. How did you know? Alexander asked in shock, and the others were also stunned. But at this moment, a loud bang exploded beside Clement, and several people around him were blown to the ground. Kill him while he's weak. Zabanai and his companions were not willing to let go of such a golden opportunity. More than 30 people surrounded them and captured all the people who came to support them from the secret room in a short while. Once the main force was gone, the remaining resistance was naturally no longer a concern. After just a few minutes, Kayla began to lead everyone to clean up the battlefield. It was still the Smith family's manor, and it was still the secret room, but the few people who were high-spirited before were now sitting side by side in a dejected manner at the lower seats, looking at the 4 women sitting at the upper seats with a guilty conscience. Only Clement and Alexander stared at one of the women like a ferocious tiger and said, Fiammetta, you are also a member of the Smith family. The family treats you well, right? Why are you rebelling against the family? Hearing this, Fiametta's originally stiff face suddenly showed a crazy look. She growled ferociously, "Is it good to take me with you? Just because I'm a squib, no one in the Smith family treats me as a human being. Insulting, scolding, imprisoning, feeding dog food, you call this treating me well? A squib is a disgrace to the family. You should understand this. Who can you blame for your own failure? The family has raised you without any complaints. You should be grateful." Alexander almost roared, "Besides, hasn't the family brought you to the Alliance and are going to ask the wizard to heal you? Do you really think I'm a fool? You just treat me as an excuse to get close to that great wizard, otherwise there would be no way you have done anything to repair the relationship. You only know how to keep me by your side and monitor me. You even bring a dirty squib like me to such an important meeting. You even lock me in a cage when you sleep, and you say you will help me heal. Do you believe it?" Fiammetta laughed mercilessly. Alexander heard this and continued to ask, "When did you two collude with each other? Why did you still have a way to contact each other when we were so cautious?" Upon hearing this, Fiammetta's face suddenly became proud and arrogant. She fiddled with an inconspicuous black ring and said disdainfully, "Of course it was when you took me to Mrs. Zabanai's cocktail party. It seems that you are really senile. I have only met the three sisters once." Then she opened up and continued to review the past. "Sister Zabanai secretly gave me a ring, Sister Kira said something to me, Sister Sally introduced me to her son who had regained his spell-casting ability. So, everything came naturally, didn't it? You only met them once, and you trust them so much?" Alexander asked unwillingly, "Oh, by the way, the ring, they can continue to convince you through this communication method." "No, you are wrong. Otherwise, why do you say you are old and confused?" Fiammetta continued to say proudly, "No more persuasion is needed. I am already so miserable, why not give it a try? It won't be worse than it is now, right? Even if the sisters really lied to me, it doesn't matter. At least, I have seen the demise of the Smith family." "Haha, very good, I really underestimated you, a dirty dud. If I had known this would happen, I should have strangled you to death when I detected that you had no ability to cast spells." Clement's face was full of resentment, "But it doesn't matter, although the Smith family has come to an end, you are still a dirty dud, this identity will follow you for the rest of your life and torment you forever, ha ha ha." Thinking of the happy things, he laughed unscrupulously. "Dear Mr. Clement, I have to stop you." Mrs. Zabanai looked at the old man in front of her with amusement and said, "Because of Fiammetta's outstanding performance, the great wizard will treat Fiammetta. Therefore, she will not be a squib in the future. Oh, yes, there is one more thing. Not including you, your Smith family still has more than 200 people alive, and there are 70 to 80 combatants alive. When Fiammetta regains her ability to cast spells, she will become the actual controller of the Smith family, and all the surviving Smith family members will become her subordinates. Of course, you also have a chance to survive, it depends on whether you can seize it." Clement and the others were stunned. That deep feeling of powerlessness gnawed at their hearts. On the contrary, Fiammetta was so excited that tears welled up in her eyes when she heard the words, and a feeling of being regarded as a confidant arose. She couldn't help but yelled excitedly, "Don't worry, sisters, under my leadership, the Smith family will definitely become the sharpest knife in the Alliance." Chapter 203. On Monday, Yang Tian received a report from Mrs. Zabanai on the actions. Yang Tian was very satisfied with the decisiveness of the three. It was too late to boil a frog in warm water. Yang Tian also accepted Mrs. Zabanai's suggestion on how to deal with the Smith family. To him, it was nothing more than restoring Fiammetta's spell-casting function and casting soul seeds on her and the Smith executives who wanted to survive. Why not? After hastily writing a reply and agreeing on a time to meet in Hogsmeade Village, Yang Tian hurried to the room of requirement. The original members of the study group were waiting for his arrival. "Yang Tian, have you really decided to include the Weasley brothers, Angelina, Elena, Cedric, and Draco into the study group?" Penelope asked straight to the point in confusion. "I know that everyone has had questions after the hot pot banquet the night before yesterday. I will take this opportunity today to give you an answer." Yang Tian's smile was still gentle, "The people in this room now are the ones I trust the most. We have been through a lot together. We can entrust our backs to each other on the battlefield. But we alone are not enough, our strength is still too weak." As he said that, Yang Tian handed the reconnaissance report of Albania a few days ago to his friends. The reconnaissance report didn't contain much content, and everyone read it quickly. But the friends were completely upset. When Yang Tian mentioned Dumbledore's conjecture about the red robe, everyone was instantly shocked. Merlin, there is a red wizard. When the pure-bloods and black-robed wizards fought, there was only one green-robed wizard, but this time there are dozens. Listening to everyone's complaints, Yang Tian smiled and pressed his hands, saying, "So, we need more people to get more people involved in our business." Looking at the people who were hesitant to speak, he continued, "Of course, as I said just now, you are the people I trust the most. So, we need to set up a probation period. We won't be honest with them right away, but we can learn and improve with them. If they are the same kind of people as us, then everything will fall into place naturally over time. But if not, problems will be exposed over time, and we will be able to stay away from them in time." When the friends heard this, they all looked enlightened, and the atmosphere on the scene became much more relaxed. "Oh, by the way, there is one more thing I want to tell you. The reason why I asked Cedric and other seniors to help teach this time is because I will be very busy recently. I won't say some things that will be said to the outside world. In fact, the real reason is that I have been concentrating on carving talismans recently to prepare trump cards for our upcoming battle. Whether it is to deal with Quirrell or to deal with the war in a few months, I need to do this. Do you understand? Yang Tian, just focus on your own business. Everyone is now on track, and injuries from daily training are decreasing dramatically. If there is anything that cannot be resolved, we will come to you." Hermione said proudly like a little adult. "That's right, don't worry about us. You can rest assured." The friends all echoed. Seeing this, Yang Tian said goodbye to everyone with relief and left the room of requirement. In fact, Yang Tian did not go anywhere else after leaving, but returned to his dormitory. Just as he told his friends, after the analysis of Cassiopeia, he did not continue to analyze the energy trajectory of new constellations, nor did he analyze the replacement pill formula as planned. Instead, he chose the talisman as the next step of analysis. There are two reasons for this. First, as he said, the possible wars in the future put a lot of pressure on him, and he needed weapons that could improve his overall combat effectiveness. Second, the analysis of astronomy gave him inspiration in talismanology. He had an intuition that if the elemental energy trajectory abstracted from the energy trajectory of the stars was applied to the drawing of talismans, it would have unexpected effects. To verify his conjecture, Yang Tian has been working at full capacity these days. In addition to using Thread 3 to deduce the Earth Shield Talisman, he has also devoted himself to the drawing process of the Earth Shield Talisman. He wants to use quantitative change to induce qualitative change and increase the speed of the intelligent brain to deduce the Earth Shield Talisman. But it was of no use. After coming here for so many years, Yang Tian had only one feeling, that he seemed to have thought too much, and his drawing was of no help in the deduction of the Earth Shield Talisman. He really didn't understand what the problem was. Helplessly, he had to activate the inner vision function and observe his Danshan. It must be said that after the earth element evolved into a liquid brown little unicorn, apart from the running tracks of other elements, there were also various strange running tracks in its body. How to say it? Just like the blood vessels or nerves of animals. Yang Tian was not sure whether this analogy was appropriate, but he was sure that these running tracks were similar to the tracks understood by the star visualization method. And applying it to the drawing of talismans seemed to be just a little bit off. But this seemingly small amount actually separated him by thousands of mountains and rivers. He was ruthlessly blocked outside the door. It was really like running to the mountain and then dying. It seemed that his understanding of the earth element was too superficial after all. Feeling a little discouraged, Yang Tian looked out the window and pondered. But the next moment, he slapped his head and said, "Fuck! Why do we have to get inspiration from the stars? There is soil everywhere outside, and the earth element is everywhere. Why not get enlightenment directly from nature?" As if his mind had suddenly been opened, Yang Tian could no longer sit still. He jumped onto the somersault cloud impatiently and rushed out of the window. Yang Tian sat quietly on an empty piece of land in the forbidden forest, his eyes closed, his mind completely immersed in the land under his feet, immersed in the world of earth element. What are the characteristics of the earth element? Heavy? Steady? Tough? It seems to have all of them, right? It agrees with every point. But what characteristics does the Earth Shield Talisman need? Yang Tian once again immersed himself in his understanding. Unconsciously, his hands were slightly raised, as if an invisible connection had been established between him and the earth. His breathing gradually became steady, and he began to draw strange lines in the air with his fingers. These lines were not drawn randomly, but contained his understanding of the characteristics of the earth element. If Yang Tian could pay attention to his own actions at this moment, he would definitely find that the strange lines he casually waved out were exactly in line with the energy flow trajectory in the brown Kylan's body. But he was unaware of this, and continued to comprehend in this strange state. Finally, at that moment, Yang Tian suddenly opened his eyes, took out the talisman paper and the dotting pen, and began to write with great vigor. His strokes were as natural as flowing water, without any hesitation or pause. Each line was so steady and powerful, like a winding mountain range. As the lines gradually intertwined, the shape of an earth shield began to emerge. It looked like a simple doodle, but it seemed to have life, exuding a heavy and solid atmosphere. At this moment, Yang Tian finally smiled. He carefully examined his work, but was surprised to find that this earth shield talisman could withstand at least 3 times more damage than a normal earth shield talisman. Yang Tian couldn't help but laugh wildly. This was simply his best work. This talisman not only represented his understanding of the characteristics of the earth element, but also a resonance between him and the earth. He even had a feeling that this kind of mysterious perception was the general direction of future development, and perhaps the intelligent brain could not deduce it at all. It must be said that the intelligent brain could not replace the human brain after all. He was very proud. However, the next moment, the cold mechanical voice of the intelligent computer sounded, "We have deduced a method for drawing a high-strength earth shield symbol, and the defense strength is 6 times that of a general earth shield symbol." Yang Tian was completely confused. Chapter 204. Yang Tian was really confused at this moment. What was going on? Was he really just being high-spirited just now, and was he slapped in the face so quickly? He quickly received the deduced memory from the intelligent brain, and it became clear at a glance. How to say it? If the Earth Shield Talisman is allowed to be deduced by the intelligent brain, it can indeed reach the current standard. But the premise is that it takes a lot of time to deduce one by one. What I did was to find a correct answer of a higher dimension through perception. The intelligent brain will then compare it based on this correct answer, and it will naturally be easier to obtain the optimal solution of this dimension. As for whether there are higher dimensional options above it, it is unknown. This operation also opened a door for Yang Tian. He quickly recalled the Earth-related talismans he had read before: Earth Spirit Talismans, Earth Escape Talismans, Dungeon Talismans, Earth Sinking Talismans. He began to comprehend them one by one. In a blink of an eye, Yang Tian had spent another 3 days in this intensive study life. That evening, Yang Tian quietly came to Hogsmeade village alone. Today was the day he had agreed with Madame Zabanai and others. In the new residence of the Yang family, Li Lao, Xiao Lao and other members of the Yang family, Mrs. Zabanai and other members of the alliance were all present, and of course, there were also Eulalia and Cao Shi who had been in charge of the interrogation. Everyone looked at the young master with excitement and urgency. "Okay, sit down and take a rest if you have nothing to do. We will do it one step at a time. Bring those who are willing to be baptized first," Yang Tian said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Mrs. Zabanai quickly brought in Fiam Meta and more than a dozen middle and high-level members of the Smith family who were willing to surrender. At the same time, Eulalia also called the 8 young wizards. Zabanai said respectfully, "Master, this is Fiam Meta, the man I mentioned to you, who made great contributions to this operation." Upon hearing this, Fiam Meta stepped forward and saluted awkwardly, but did not say a word. Yang Tian didn't care. He nodded and looked around and said, "I believe the relevant person in charge has told you a lot about what should and shouldn't be said. I won't waste time here. I just want to emphasize one thing to you. Don't waste this hard-won baptism opportunity, because it only comes once, and you only have one life. No one can get away with it. The unfaithful and the deceitful will only suffer endlessly." After saying that, he turned and entered the secret room next to it. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, the baptism of Fiametta's soul seed went smoothly, and the restoration of spellcasting ability also went smoothly. Clement was baptized successfully, Alexander was baptized successfully. 11 members of the Smith family were baptized easily. Yang Tian was a little bit unbelievable. Was the Smith family too afraid of death, or did he already have the aura of a king and lord, so he bowed down and worshipped with a tremor of his body? How could it be so smooth? However, people just can't help but mutter. When Yang Tianyun used his soul eye to observe the 12th person, he almost cried out. Because under the terrified and shaky appearance of this middle-aged man, a large amount of red mist like blood erupted from his soul. It was resistance, hatred, and ambition. Yang Tian waved his wand calmly, and when the other party was still immersed in his performance, a snake-like hissing sound suddenly sounded. As the hissing sound came, the middle-aged wizard's eyes gradually became empty, and then lost their spirit. But Yang Tian did not stop attacking, instead he counterattacked with another stupefy to knock him down. In fact, the hissing sound was the Parcel Tongue version of the Imperious Curse, which was also learned from the soul memory of the library. Casting the Imperious Curse in Parcel Tongue undoubtedly enhanced its concealment. After everything was settled, Yang Tian calmly straightened his collar, and then used the levitation spell to pull this man in front of the Smith family. He smiled and said, "Everyone, please tell me the identity of this person." Most of the Smith family members looked confused when they heard this, and some even answered without knowing why. "He is the nephew of Lord Alexander, what's the problem?" However, two people reacted extremely violently. Their bodies were twisted, their faces were full of pain, their throats were emitting hoarse groans, and their eyes were full of despair and helplessness. That's right, they were Clement and Alexander. The reason they ended up like this was naturally the backlash of the soul seed. "I actually forgot to collect my reward." Yang Tian didn't care about the current state of the two people, nor did he give them a chance to speak. Instead, he walked straight up to them and put his hands on their heads. In an instant, the memories of the two people flooded into Yang Tian's mind like a tide and merged with the original memories in his mind. After reading it carefully with his eyes closed, Yang Tian sneered, "I never realized that the Smith family is so ambitious. On the one hand, they have close dealings with the mysterious organization, and on the other hand, they maintain a good relationship with the pure blood family. You are really planning to take advantage of both sides. But I am curious, how can you be willing to surrender completely? You are even willing to accept the baptism of the soul seed, and it was successful. Master, we surrender sincerely this time. The life and death of all the Smith family members are in your hands. We don't want the inheritance of the Smith family to be cut off from our generation." Clement, who had just recovered, said cautiously. "But you didn't want to tell me your little secret, did you?" Yang Tian's smile became even brighter. In fact, he was very confused. Could it be that the Smith family had a way to fight against the soul seeds? Otherwise, how could they conceal such important information without being punished? "Master, it's unfair. We really didn't mean to hide anything." Alexander, who had experienced endless pain, burst into tears. "After you baptized us, you directly asked us to go out and wait. We didn't have a chance to report anything. Of course, your sudden question just now really frightened us, so we subconsciously wanted to conceal it, and we were also punished. Master, you must forgive us." Yang Tian was not in a hurry to express his opinion, because he was not sure whether what the two old guys said was true or false. So, he smiled and said, "Oh, so that's how it is. Now that you have time, do you have anything else to say to me?" "Master, this man is indeed my nephew. During a vacation, he joined a mysterious wizard organization for unknown reasons. Since then, he has been conducting transactions and cooperation with us on behalf of this organization. This information is top secret, and only Clement and I know about it." Alexander hurriedly said, "Our transactions are limited to collecting some items in the magical world that they are interested in. Oh, by the way, I also know that they have a logistics supply base. In addition, our Smith family also has a secret base, which contains some reserve wizards." Alexander can be said to have told us everything he knew. Yang Tian was not surprised at all when he heard this, because he had already memorized all these things, and he just wanted to verify the truth of the other party's words. After reviewing the situation carefully and feeling that it was almost correct, Yang Tian said seriously, "Eulalia and Grass Snake, after I remove the restrictions on this person, you can interrogate him suddenly and seize the time to dig out something. This may bring us unexpected gains. As for the rest of the people, continue with the baptism ceremony." After saying that, Yang Tian quickly walked towards the secret room. Chapter 205. 4 days had passed in the blink of an eye. Since the last trip to Hogsmeade, Meng Jiao hadn't brought him any surprise letters. But he wasn't in a hurry. After all, it wasn't easy to get information from Asaruk. Yang Tian naturally did not waste his time. He was distributing the talismans he made to the original members of the study group. Each of them could get 10 Earth Shield talismans, 10 Earth Walking talismans, 20 Earth Spirit talismans, and 5 Dungeon talismans. These talismans were the result of Yang Tian's work in recent days. They were 6 times more powerful than ordinary talismans. It must be said that they were very powerful. Of course, these talismans are not for children to carry in their pockets for emergencies, but are for practice, to familiarize themselves with how to use the talismans. Seeing the power displayed by these yellow or blue pieces of paper, everyone was amazed. It was also from this day that Adrian Tuttley, Sierra and other experts in transfiguration arrived at Hogwarts one after another. Facing these famous experts and scholars in the wizarding world, the young wizards were extremely excited. But if we were to ask who was the only one who was not interested in the arrival of these experts, it would definitely be Yang Tian. You ask why? Because he was tired. This scene reminded him of the astronomy experts who had just arrived a while ago. Fortunately, unlike astronomy, Yang Tian still has a lot of magical animal lifelines and blood deductions in his hands. Just picking out one of them will be enough to excite these experts for a long time. So, Yang Tian's mood relaxed again. But what was unexpected was that today, the internal welcome reception held for the arrival of many transfiguration experts once again became Yang Tian's show and stage. At this time, the classroom that was usually used for transfiguration club gatherings had been decorated in a simple and noble manner. Rich food was also provided in the form of a buffet for the participants. Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, Adrian Tuttley, Sierra and other experts, Yang Tian and the little wizards of the Transfiguration Club all appeared at the reception. The atmosphere was very lively, and everyone, regardless of age and fame, rushed to talk to Yang Tian and was proud of it. Yang Tian also talked to everyone with his superb communication skills and good aristocratic etiquette, which made the participants feel at home. But at this moment, Adrian Tuttley spoke first. Minerva, we are old acquaintances, so don't be so pretentious. The atmosphere here is so good, I wonder if we have the honor to see the transfiguration skills of your proud disciples? This proposal immediately aroused everyone's interest, and all eyes were focused on the little wizards. Hearing this, Elena still maintained her cold expression and walked confidently to the center of the venue. She gently waved her magic wand, and for a moment, the light flashed, and a wine glass turned into a lively bird, flying happily in the air. Seeing this, the crowd nodded in approval and gave encouraging applause. Angelina then appeared, and as she waved her wand, the bird in the air began to dive rapidly, and turned into a mandrake before landing. The whole set of movements was smooth and flowing, which aroused applause again. Then, one by one the little wizards came forward to perform their specialties, and the atmosphere of the cocktail party became more and more lively. Until the very end, everyone looked at Yang Tian with anticipation, wanting to see if he would show even more exciting transformation skills. Yang Tian certainly wasn't afraid of the stage. He smiled and waved the ancient magic wand in the center of the venue. As the magic light shone, a crystal cup changed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and finally transformed into a lifelike fire ash snake. But the experts watching frowned when they saw this. This is not to say that Yang Tian's transfiguration is worse than others, but everyone's expectations of him were already high, but in the end they saw a transfiguration performance similar to that of other young wizards, and their disappointment was naturally beyond words. Seeing this, Sierra was about to step forward to rescue. But she saw the transformed fire ash snake flexibly scurried under the table beside her, and laid a nest of snake eggs in front of everyone's horrified eyes. What was even more unacceptable was that the fire ash snake eggs were dazzling red and emitted a blazing light. Oh, Merlin, this is impossible. This is completely beyond the scope of transfiguration. Don't tell me that the ovulation of the fire ash snake is also a damn nerve reaction. Adrian was already a little incoherent. Can anyone tell me what is going on? A bald old man showed an expression of complete destruction. Will these fire ash snake eggs burn all the surrounding items? Before Sierra finished speaking, the tablecloth next to the snake eggs began to burn, and in an instant, the fire spread to the entire table. Several wizards were quick to draw their wands and put out the fire, while several other wizards quickly used restoration and vanishing spells on the fire ash snakes and snake eggs. The result was that the fire was extinguished, but the snake and the eggs were still there. Several transfiguration experts looked at Yang Tian in disbelief. Seeing this, Yang Tian calmly cast a restoration spell. The fire ash snake and the snake eggs twisted and deformed unwillingly, and finally turned back into a crystal cup. Everything has settled down, but the whole classroom is as chaotic as a vegetable market. No, this is impossible. This is subversion. Do you understand subversion? The fire ash snake actually ovulated. This has nothing to do with the academic paper published before. This is a complete hoax. This is definitely not transfiguration. That's right, we don't accept such transfiguration. There was a lot of noise around, and Yang Tian frowned. Looking at the suspicious eyes of the experts in front of him, he knew that he needed to give these experts in transfiguration an explanation, otherwise he would definitely not have a good ending. So he quickly asked the intelligent brain why all this happened. As expected, Professor McGonagall had quickly walked up to Yang Tian and said solemnly, "Yang Tian, don't be nervous. No matter what, the teacher believes in you. Just speak out your ideas boldly and let them see how ignorant they are." Yang Tian was very moved when he heard this. He knew Professor McGonagall's painstaking efforts. She was using this method to attract firepower for her favorite student. Sure enough, before he finished speaking, the angry hums of dissatisfaction from the surroundings reached Yang Tian's ears. However, Yang Tian was not nervous at all, because the answer from the intelligent brain had already flowed into his memory. What he wanted to do more at this moment was to vent his anger on Professor McGonagall. However, Yang Tian's originally peaceful expression suddenly became arrogant, and his words were full of sarcasm. There is an old saying in China, to know what you know and to know what you don't know is knowledge. Its meaning is to tell everyone not to pretend to know what you don't know. Of course, there is another old saying in China, there is no limit to learning, and the wise are the teachers. Its meaning is that just because you have studied for a long time, it doesn't mean you are better than others. Yang Tian's words brought silence to the chaotic scene. Many veteran experts wanted to retort, but in the end they said nothing. Sierra stepped forward and said in a friendly manner, "Yang Tian, don't get me wrong. We are definitely not targeting you, let alone Professor McGonagall. They just saw such a subversive situation happen, so it's hard for them to accept it for a while." Yang Tian stopped nagging after hearing this and said seriously, "Actually, this is not inconsistent with everyone's cognition. In fact, this unacceptable change is caused by the transformation of the fire ash snake's blood. This is also the best supplement to Professor McGonagall's academic paper." Chapter 206. As if he felt that words were too pale and powerless, Yang Tian tapped his ancient magic wand and 3 fire ash snakes appeared in front of everyone in an instant. He said calmly, "I have been studying fire ash snakes for a long time. From the appearance, these 3 fire ash snakes are no different, but if we break them down, we can find the differences." This first fire ash snake was made using conventional transfiguration, Yang Tianbian said, showing it to everyone. "But what about this second one? It was naturally made using the texture difference points I described in my academic paper. Through repeated experiments, we can find that there are about 7 points on the snake skeleton where the texture is very different from the surrounding areas, which will give the fire ash snake some basic abilities, such as nerve reactions, etc. However, I recently had a new idea. These texture difference points are also symbols of special carriers." "What is a special carrier symbol?" Adrian asked in confusion. Upon hearing this, Yang Tian transformed a crystal cup into a fire ash snake again, and continued to answer, "Everyone, you see, although this fire ash snake has the blood of a fire ash snake, it does not have these points of texture difference. The direct consequence is that this fire ash snake does not have special abilities. In other words, this special blood and the points of texture difference complement each other. Only when both exist at the same time can the ability be activated." The onlookers were all experts in transfiguration. They took the fire ash snake from Yang Tian and observed it carefully, marveling at it from time to time. Yang Tian ignored everyone's reactions and continued to speak, "As for the ovulation of the transformed fire ash snake, my research results show that it is blood instinct. We all know that the lifespan of the fire ash snake is very short, only about an hour. In theory, if all fire ash snakes cannot lay eggs within an hour, the species will become extinct. In other words, whether or not snake eggs can be laid in time becomes the key to whether the species can continue. Therefore, during the evolution of the fire ash snake, the ability to lay eggs should be hidden in the blood, not in the soul." Listening to Yang Tian's story, the transfiguration experts around him were completely lost. They all tested the fire ash snakes in their hands, but were shocked to discover a fact: what he said made sense. Even Dumbledore was completely immersed in it. Time passed quickly during Yang Tian's explanation. Finally, an hour later, when Yang Tian thoroughly analyzed the details of the fire ash snake's improved transfiguration, the whole audience was silent, and everyone was still unable to come back to their senses for a long time. Suddenly, an abrupt applause broke the original silence, and it was Yang Tian's teacher, Professor McGonagall. Perhaps she had listened to Yang Tian's brilliant explanations so many times that she had developed a certain immunity. So she was the first person to wake up from her contemplation. How could Professor McGonagall be stingy with her applause for the stunning performance of her favorite student? Her applause seemed to awaken everyone present, and then more and more people joined in the applause until the applause was deafening, and the atmosphere of the welcome reception reached its climax. In the second half of the reception, Yang Tian became the focus of the whole audience. Experts came up to him from time to time to chat with him and exchange views with him on topics of their own interest until the reception ended successfully. The cocktail party was over, and Yang Tian left, but many experts in transfiguration did not leave, but gathered together again for a meeting. Minerva, it's amazing. You and Yang Tian are both amazing. The results you have demonstrated during this period are already very close to a complete theoretical line. These repeated verifications have also laid a solid foundation for us in the direction of microscopic transfiguration. So, I have decided to settle down in Hogwarts, and we will study microscopic transfiguration together in the future. Sierra was so excited that she was a little incoherent. Yes, I think so too. And I have an immature idea. Let me share it with you all so that we can discuss it. Adrian also said excitedly. I think we are different from the astronomy side after all. I heard from a friend who is an astronomy expert at Hogwarts that their astronomical observations are too illusory. The trajectory of energy movement requires long-term observation and accumulation, as well as a little bit of luck, which even involves several generations. Therefore, they are very dependent on Yang Tian. But we are different. Although it is not easy to find the points of texture difference, we can solve it through a large number of experiments. Therefore, our top priority is to establish a new topic, starting with the magical animals with smaller bodies and weaker abilities, and jointly research and conduct repeated experiments. I believe that there will be a breakthrough soon. Of course, this research team still needs Yang Tian to participate. I believe that with his participation, we can avoid many detours. I agree with this idea in principle, but there are some problems. The first is Yang Tian's schedule. After all, he is a student and his schoolwork is already heavy. And as you said just now, astronomy relies heavily on him. In addition, there is Professor Sprout in the herbology department. I really don't know how much time he can squeeze out for this research group. Professor McGonagall said with a worried look on her face. The second is naturally the choice of subject. To be honest, at least so far, there is no evidence to prove that small and weak magical animals have fewer texture differences. Once we choose the wrong subject and cause research to stagnate, it will have a great negative impact on our team. Professor McGonagall's words undoubtedly poured cold water on the experts, and everyone frowned and began to think deeply. Sierra spoke again when she saw this. Minerva, how about this? The first-year transfiguration class is meaningless to Yang Tian now. Seeing that Professor McGonagall was already showing signs of anger, she quickly said, what I mean is that his transfiguration class time should be divided into two parts. One part will be for a few of us to help him learn the transfiguration knowledge for senior grades, and the other part will be for him to participate in the project. This plus the 1/3 of his spare time you have won, I think it should not be a problem. Yes, Minerva, it's better for us to follow his progress step by step than for him to waste time in the first-year transfiguration class, right? Seeing that Professor McGonagall was still hesitant, Adrian said helplessly, how about this, you test his progress every week, and if he can't meet your psychological expectations, then let him go back to class, that should be okay. Professor McGonagall was in a good mood after hearing this, and she immediately forgot to control her expression. She accidentally revealed a smile of success. Seeing the suspicious and scrutinizing eyes of her old friends around her, she suddenly came to her senses and coughed lightly. I reluctantly agreed to this matter, but you must do your best. If Yang Tianzhen falls into your hands, you will be held responsible. That will be a loss for the entire wizarding world. Many experts were so angry when they heard this. But what could they do? After all, they accepted a good student. With no other options, everyone could only accept it with their eyes closed and continue discussing the follow-up plan. Chapter 207. The cocktail party that night did not cause any waves in Hogwarts. Many young wizards didn't even know about the party. Everyone continued to study and live as usual. The only change was that Yang Tian was exempted from classes, and all transfiguration courses were arranged by Yang Tian at the end of the semester. The young wizards were envious of this. In fact, Yang Tian himself was also very happy, because the first-year transfiguration course was really meaningless to him. Instead of wasting time, he might as well invest in new research and learn new knowledge. Oh, there was another change. After the cocktail party that night, Headmaster Dumbledore suddenly became a recluse and rarely appeared in everyone's sight. Of course, this situation did not cause trouble to most Hogwarts teachers and students. After all, he was not directly involved in teaching, but more of a mascot. Oh. Wrong. He was a patron saint. But Yang Tian felt something was wrong. He suspected that Dumbledore himself should no longer be in Hogwarts. He should have gone to Albania. Of course, he was not the only one who noticed something unusual. Recently, Professor Quirrell rarely appeared in public except for teaching. However, the intelligence from the Marauders map and the scouting team in the restricted area on the 4th floor showed that the professor had been in this restricted area almost every night since Dumbledore went into seclusion. Moreover, there are more discoveries on the Marauders map than just that. A more interesting phenomenon is that Snape has been keeping a close eye on Quirrell recently, while Ron and Harry have been keeping a close eye on Snape. Is this the legendary man-to-man defense? Yang Tian combined the original plot and sorted out his thoughts, but he made up his mind. He couldn't wait endlessly like this, it was time to take action. Otherwise, the training opportunity he left for his friends would be snatched away by Ron and Harry by accident. So, the following morning, Neville, Hermione, Penelope, Zhongqiu, Padma, Parvati, Pansy, and Daphne entered the room of requirement together at Yang Tian's call. I've decided. We have to take action against Quirrell. Yang Tian said first, I suspect Dumbledore has left Hogwarts. Quirrell's behavior is obviously abnormal. We can't let him continue like this. Then when do we take action? Parvati asked excitedly. It's better to do it today than to wait for a day. Tonight. Yang Tian immediately began to distribute talismans and continued, the little guys have already told me the general situation of this restricted area. It's basically a level set by the professors. It's not very dangerous. I prefer to call it a test. Therefore, I won't take action during the level stage. You have to rely entirely on your own efforts to pass this test. Is there any problem? Don't worry, Tian, we have been training hard these days and we won't let you down. Hermione said confidently. The friends also echoed her words, and for a moment, everyone was eager to fight. Yang Tian was very satisfied with everyone's reactions. After discussing the details with everyone, they dispersed. At midnight, Yang Tian and his friends finally gathered in front of the restricted area on the 4th floor. They had been looking at the Marauders map, and after confirming that Professor Quirrell had been there for an hour, they set out decisively. Under the cover of the advanced disillusionment spell, they naturally had no danger along the way. Everyone pushed the door open and entered. The huge three-headed dog Fluffy seemed to have fallen asleep. The trapdoor on the ground was very eye-catching. Next to it was a harp. Was this how Quirrell passed this level? For this level, the friends who had already learned the news were naturally well prepared. Without any further ado, they placed a music box in the corner of the room, and then jumped down from the trapdoor one by one. Everything was just like the original. After jumping off the trapdoor, they would naturally fall into the devil's net prepared by Professor Sprout. Now there were 9 people in this group, and each of them was considered an elite, right? How could they not know the habits of the devil's net? After a simple lighting spell, it was another easy level. Yang Tian didn't say a word throughout the whole process, but he was still quite happy to see his friends' agile figures. Following closely behind their friends, they passed through the long corridor and soon found a room at the end of the corridor. But inside the room, the dome was arched high, and inside, there were a lot of birds as bright as gems, flapping their wings and flying. Penelope glanced around the room and saw a heavy wooden door on the side. She looked at the simple silver door lock and the flying bird in the room, and she seemed to be thinking about something. Anxious, Parvati stepped forward and cast an unlocking spell, but unfortunately, the wooden door did not respond. Penelope smiled and said, "Sure enough, the question is obvious. Do you see those 2 flying brooms?" She pointed to the other side of the room and continued, "Those flying things are not birds, but keys. Ride on the flying broom, find a silver and ancient key, then open the door and leave." Everyone was certain when they heard this, and their eyes were all locked on Yang Tian. When they saw this guy crossing his arms and looking like he was enjoying the show, they groaned in anger and continued to lock on the next target, Zhang Qiu. Zhang Qiu was not surprised. She smiled confidently, then sat on her flying broom and flew into the sky. As Zhang Qiu took off, the key also accelerated its flight as if it had discovered danger. Zhang Qiu was the best seeker in Hogwarts after all. She carefully searched while circling and soon locked onto the target. At this moment, she was up and down like an elf in the wind, and in an instant she came to the key. She reached out and grabbed it, and then held it firmly in her palm. The key in her hand began to struggle violently, but Zhang Qiu didn't care, and happily spun and flew down. But at this moment, the friends exclaimed. Zhang Qiu looked and saw that all the keys were rushing towards her impatiently. She quickly accelerated and rushed down, stuffed the key firmly into Hermione's hand, and then hurriedly pulled up the broomstick, a standard small-scale Wronski fake move. Then, she played hide-and-seek with these angry keys. Everything was so calm. Hermione hurriedly opened the door, and everyone watched Zhang Qiu's flying performance leisurely. But at this moment, an accident happened. Some of the keys behind Zhang Qiu suddenly exploded in a chain. The airflow of the explosion directly knocked Zhang Qiu and her flying broom out. Not only that, taking advantage of her illness, she was killed. In such an emergency, more keys accelerated towards Zhang Qiu. Yang Tian was also frightened by the scene before him. There was no such scene in the original novel. What on earth was going on? Angry, Yang Tian had already drawn out the ancient magic wand and was ready to rescue. Suddenly, Zhang Qiu, who was falling, suddenly chanted a spell, and his figure instantly became ethereal along with the spell. The next moment, the ethereal figure flew to the side of his friends at an extremely fast speed. At this moment, the door opened. Seeing this, the friends rushed in one after another, and slammed the door shut after the last person entered. Then, a series of explosions came from behind the door. Damn it, this level is designed to be too dangerous. Parvati said hatefully. That's right, it's almost life-threatening. Padma was still frightened, but she quickly said happily, but Zhang Qiu, what was your last move? It was so cool. Flying spell, as you know, I have been conducting related research for a long time. Although it is not perfect yet, it is enough to deal with today's situation. Zhang Qiu said with unprecedented confidence. Merlin, Qiu, have you really finished it? Penelope was happy for her good sister. After you go back, you must teach me this trick. That's right, we want to learn it too. The friends also echoed. No problem, but this is indeed an imperfect magic and needs further polishing. Zhang Qiu replied embarrassedly. Everyone was very happy, except Yang Tian, who was lost in thought. This level should be the work of Professor Flitwick, but this explosion was definitely not caused by him. Who was it? Professor Quirrell? Or Sarag? Chapter 208. Seeing his friends still chattering, Yang Tian also put aside his thoughts and encouraged, Qiu, don't underestimate yourself, it's really great. Then he jokingly said, but, my friends, don't you want to see what the next level is? It doesn't seem easy to pass. Yes, we are here to do something important, why do we treat it like a sightseeing trip? Everyone smiled awkwardly at each other and looked towards the empty space in the room. Cool, it's actually wizard chess. Neville said in shock, this should be the work of Professor McGonagall? This transfiguration is too powerful. From what I've seen, we should be able to win this game of wizard chess. Daphne said uncertainly, do we have anyone who is good at playing wizard chess? When the friends heard this, they looked at each other and finally shook their heads helplessly. You guys aren't really planning on playing a game of wizard chess honestly, are you? Pansy said speechlessly. Do we have to break in again? Hermione said dissatisfiedly. What else? Do you have a better idea? Daphne immediately retorted. Hermione fell into embarrassment when she heard this. It seems that it is possible. Parvati fully demonstrated the nature of a militant. She said eagerly, if everyone has no better way, fighting in is the only choice. Then what are we waiting for? The friends confirmed each other's eyes and drew out their wands. When they stepped onto the chessboard, the eyes of the black and white pieces lit up, as if waiting for the next order. Find one to test the waters first. Penelope gave the order, everyone, attack the soldier right in the middle of the black spot. As soon as the words came out, the curse rained down on the designated target. However, the huge chess piece seemed to be cast with some kind of magic, and after a round of attacks, it was not hurt at all. But this round of attack was like stirring up a hornet's nest. On the chessboard, both the black and white pieces began to launch fierce attacks on the little wizards. They rushed forward one after another, as if they wanted to tear everyone apart. The friends were not panicked at all. Neville and Hannah bravely went to the front and protected the others behind them. Of course, they were not reckless, but used transfiguration to transform the surrounding rubble into huge iron pillars, blocking the way of the chess pieces, thus slowing down their charge. This was the inspiration they found from the dungeon rune. Hermione, however, remembered the slide charm that Yang Tian used to deal with the gathered monsters, and quickly applied it, and the effect was surprisingly good. Seeing the three of them making achievements, the other friends also showed off their skills, using a variety of tricks to delay the movement of the chess pieces. It was at this time that Penelope finally found the key to victory. After the first round of attacks failed, she, who was good at analysis, began to try to solve the problem of transfiguration with transfiguration. She first used transfiguration on the transformed chess piece again. Unfortunately, it had no effect, the restoration spell still didn't work, the vanishing spell. Penelope suddenly found that the upper body of the chess piece she had cast a spell on had strangely disappeared. Although it quickly returned to its original state due to its own strength, Penelope was still very excited. But she shouted, "Remember the vanishing spell I taught you before Christmas? Everyone, get ready! Attack the horse in front of me! 3, 2, 1, attack!" As soon as the words fell, several beams of magic light, including Pinlo's, shot straight at the chess piece. In the blink of an eye, the chess piece completely disappeared. Penelope was overjoyed when she saw this. She quickly said, "Car in front of you on the right. 3, 2, 1, attack!" Then, the friends named the chess pieces one by one. A few minutes later, when all the chess pieces disappeared, Yang Tian finally showed a satisfied smile, and his friends cheered excitedly. After passing Professor McGonagall's wizard chess level, everyone's self-confidence was significantly improved. They were in high spirits, chatting as they walked, and seemed not to be afraid of any difficulties that might come later. Soon, they arrived at the door of the next room, and the familiar stench coming from the door clearly told them the content of the level. Giant! Parvati curled her lips and said, "I believe everyone has prepared this monster as an imaginary enemy for private practice, right? Then don't wait, let's go." As they were talking, the door was opened, and the giant monster appeared in front of everyone. Unfortunately, this giant monster, which was much bigger than the one on Halloween, was lying motionless in a pool of blood. Who did it? Quirrell? Logically, this troll should have been prepared by him, right? Padma asked in dissatisfaction. The troll is stupid and very brutal. It will never be truly subdued. Hermione explained, and then she changed the subject and said, "But what I am more concerned about is that all the professors have taken action so far, right? It seems that the only one left is Professor Snape, right? His level won't ask us to brew potions, will it?" Neville's face looked a little unhappy. Although he had barely caught up with potions with the help of his friends, he still found it difficult to accept Professor Snape's style. Haha, the more likely possibility is drinking the potion. I have to say, based on my understanding of Professor Snape, this is in line with his style. Penelope said half-jokingly. While chatting and laughing, the friends quickly entered a new room. However, before they had time to look around, a blazing purple fire started burning at their entrance, and the entrance in front was blocked by another black fire. Next, when everyone saw the 7 bottles of reagents of different styles on the table in front of them, and a piece of paper next to the bottles, all the friends gave their love to Pinlo. Zhang Chu said weakly, "There is a term in China called crow's mouth, which should be the most suitable for you, Pinlo." The friends burst into laughter. Only Penelope felt like crying. "Okay, let's quickly figure out how to pass the level." Hermione smiled and said, then she carefully read the contents on the paper. After a moment, she spoke again, "This puzzle is not difficult, it can be easily guessed. This smallest bottle is undoubtedly the antidote, which can pass the black flame. But such a small bottle is only enough for one person. How can others get through? Of course, there is another bottle of potion to return to the starting point, but I don't think anyone wants to go back. Of course no one would be willing to go out. However, why do we have to drink this potion to pass through the flames? Don't you think the earth shield would be a good choice? I really don't think this flame can break the defense of the earth shield. Hannah, who is obsessed with alchemy, said confidently. This is a great idea, let's give it a try. Upon hearing this, the friends agreed and began to prepare for action. But at this moment, Yang Tian spoke, I have to say that everyone performed very well today. They showed the results of the previous training. But what happened next is very dangerous. Yang Tian, now that we're here, you don't want us to give up now and go in alone, do you? Penelope interrupted Yang Tian and said unconvinced. Seeing this, Yang Tian also smiled helplessly, don't worry, I never said that you should give up. I just said that it will be very dangerous in there. So I will join, and you have to act according to the plan. Most importantly, I also have some doubts that I need the people inside to give me an answer. After hearing this, the friends calmed down and listened carefully to Yang Tian's arrangements. Chapter 209. Finally, Yang Tian passed through the black flames and entered the last room. There was no doubt that it was Quirrell who was in the room. At this moment, he was stroking a mirror with a golden frame that reached the ceiling. The words Aristella Erhilo Iat Ubikafru Iat and Vohis were clearly visible on the top. Yang Tian, who was familiar with the original novel, knew that it was the mirror of Arist. And the Philosopher's Stone must have been hidden in the mirror by Dumbledore. Seeing Yang Tian coming, Qi Luo was not surprised or panicked at all. Instead, he showed a strong hatred. He smiled cruelly and said, as expected, I have been waiting for you to come. Today, you can rest in peace here. Yang Tian was also not afraid. He smiled and said, are you so sure that I will come? And, Professor Quirrell, are you so confident that you can kill me? Or do you have something more powerful to rely on? Yang Tian's sudden question made Qi Luo feel a little uneasy. He had no time to show his wisdom, but asked in a panic, what do you mean? Seeing this, Yang Tian smiled even more happily, or, ask your friend under the headscarf to come out and chat. Asshole, you! Quirrell was about to retort, but Voldemort's words came to his mind, okay, you piece of shit. He has discovered me, let me talk to him. Master, there is really no need for you to show up in person. Quirrell said devoutly. I said, let me talk to him. Voldemort said word by word. Qi Luo had no choice but to peel off his headscarf layer by layer with trembling hands. When the turban fell off completely, a distorted human face appeared behind Quirrell's head. At the same time, a creepy voice came from the back of Quirrell's head, boy, you have aroused my interest. You actually know my existence? Then you should also know who I am. Yang Tian still looked relaxed, of course, who wouldn't know the famous Dark Lord Voldemort? Boy, you deserve to die. Don't you know the consequences of calling the Dark Lord by his name? Quirrell's angry voice came. Upon hearing this, Yang Tian said calmly, okay, there's no need to worry about those boring details. Then he turned to Voldemort with great interest and asked, there is something I can't figure out. According to my analysis, you came to Hogwarts to steal the Philosopher's Stone, right? But according to your current situation, shouldn't you keep a low profile and behave yourself? But since the beginning of the school year, you have been uncharacteristically calculating against me, even at the cost of exposing yourself. For example, that damned punishment decision. I just can't figure it out. Did you know me at that time? Why did you hate me so much? Or are you in cahoots with that mysterious organization? Ha ha ha, your mind is amazing. No wonder you have achieved such great success in your first year. Voldemort was not angry when he heard this. Instead, he admired and bewitched him. How about you be loyal to me? I will give you the strength and authority you have always dreamed of. Yang Tian couldn't help but sneer when he heard this. What could a village chief give him? But he didn't say it out loud, but asked stubbornly, you haven't answered my question just now. Voldemort didn't care, but said leisurely, okay, then I will satisfy your curiosity. Do you remember the 3 black-robed wizards who died under your tree when you were 5 or 6 years old? You are indeed in cahoots with that evil organization. Yang Tian's eyes became dangerous. Stop it, kid. It's just a small organization under the Muggle royal family. Voldemort was very disdainful, but after looking at Yang Tian's expression, he asked dissatisfiedly, what's that look in your eyes? Am I wrong? Haha, are you sure that the mysterious organization that is more powerful than your Death Eaters is just a small organization? Yang Tian sneered. No wonder, vision determines everything. Voldemort laughed so unscrupulously, you don't even know the meaning of that organization's existence, nor do you know the composition of that organization. If they were really powerful, they wouldn't have suffered such a big loss at the hands of a group of frightened trash. To put it bluntly, I can have as many subordinates as the black-robed wizards as I want, but I, Voldemort, am not a garbage recycling station. What about the green-robed wizards? Are they also rubbish? Yang Tian said disdainfully, you don't think there are few green-robed wizards in this organization, do you? You still don't understand what I mean, haha. Since you are so interested, I can tell you a piece of news. They not only have black robes and green robes, but also blue robes and red robes. At the same time, they have quite a few blue-robed wizards. But so what? They will never belong to the magical world, and they have no future, they can only hide in the dark like rats in the sewer. If I hadn't given them a little bait back then, they wouldn't dare to come out and show off until now. Yang Tian had no idea what he was talking about, but Voldemort no longer gave Yang Tian a chance to speak. He got back to the point and said, let's talk about what happened back then. The 3 black-robed wizards who died in your hands, the female wizard, was mine. She was a glorious Death Eater. Undercover. Yang Tian murmured, but how do you know that her death is related to me? At that time, apart from our people and the 3 dead black-robed wizards, there was no one else present. And you actually know the details of her death. Voldemort was even more proud. He laughed wildly and said, yes, there was indeed no one else present at the time, and my loyal Death Eater is indeed dead. However, before she died, she prepared an interesting little gift for you. She used her flesh and blood to complete a curse. In fact, this little curse is not of much use. It can only transmit a video of her death and what she was thinking at the time to my mind when the murderer appears in front of me. Yang Tian was shocked. He knew too little about the magical world. He had never heard of such a strange curse. Moreover, he still found it hard to believe, so, you are willing to expose yourself for the sake of one of your Death Eaters. Hearing this, Voldemort suddenly became irritable. He roared wildly, of course there is more to it than that. You damn bastard, the suitcase has fallen into your hands, right? It should have been mine, mine. Do you know how long I have been preparing for this treasure? Do you really think that you, a bunch of rubbish, can easily kill 4 green-robed wizards? The Dark Lord's words were like a depth charge, completely shocking Yang Tian. Chapter 210. Yang Tian asked incredulously, you mean to say that the 4 green-robed wizards are also your people? Of course not. How come you are still so stupid at this point? Voldemort's voice became sharper and sharper. Remember the green-robed wizard who died together with your companions? If it weren't for his help, you would have died under the siege of 4 green-robed wizards. You should be grateful to him. But what did you do? Not only did you not repay him, you killed him. He helped us? How can you say that? Yang Tian was speechless. Voldemort snorted before continuing, that was just a clever design. The green-robed wizards had tactical arrangements before the battle. According to the plan at the time, the other 3 green-robed wizards were tasked with protecting the scientists, so they set up energy shields to fight the source of the explosion, and my hidden man's task was to protect the 3 green-robed wizards. Of course, he finally chose to protect only himself, that's all. Yang Tian's scalp tingled when he heard this. He frowned and asked, so, all of this was planned by your Death Eaters? Just for the suitcase? Not only the briefcases, but also the scientists. Voldemort reminded, if not for this, the loss of the Institute was not very great at that time. Why did the briefcases and scientists evacuate so early? It's all because of you. Otherwise, after leaving the base, my loyal servants could kill the 3 green robes unexpectedly, and then everything would be mine. At the end, Voldemort was already roaring like crazy. Okay, little guy, tell me your answer now. After venting for a while, Voldemort finally calmed down. He asked sinisterly, I advise you to think it over before giving me an answer. Yang Tian said calmly, in fact, you already know the answer, so why bother asking? You want me to be loyal? You don't deserve it. Okay, very good, you rejected the great devil's last kindness. Voldemort was filled with murderous intent, well, you killed my servants, destroyed my plans, and robbed my treasures. Tell me, why are you still alive? After he finished speaking, Voldemort had already drawn out his wand and pointed it at Yang Tian. It's simple. I'm alive because I'm stronger than you. Yang Tian immediately drew out his wand and pointed it at Voldemort. The battle was about to begin. How arrogant! I want to see if you have the strength to match it. Then, Voldemort pointed his wand and shouted, Avada Kedavra. Although Yang Tian had rich combat experience, he had to face Voldemort, who was the most powerful villain in the original work, and he was using the notorious melon-eating weapon, so he was still somewhat nervous at this time. However, Yang Tian did not hesitate at all. He tapped the magic wand in his hand repeatedly, and the spell he cast was the shortest and fastest disarm me. In fact, Yang Tian could have used other methods to deal with Voldemort's move, but this move in the original book left a deep impression on Yang Tian. Harry used this move to defeat almost everyone in the village. Even in the 2 battles with Voldemort, Harry relied on this disarming spell. There have been many speculations about this slot in the past. Some say it is a bug, some say it is because of the wand, some say it is because Harry himself is Voldemort's Horcrux, and some say that this disarming spell is like the rat in the game of chess. No one can beat it, but it can wrestle with you. Just ask if it is infuriating. In short, with such a good opportunity today, how could Yang Tian not try to solve this unsolved mystery? The result was very cool. The 2 spells collided and disappeared in an instant. Therefore, the following duel scene turned into a simple and unpretentious exchange of spells, running, jumping, dodging, and moving. The 2 waved their wands again and again during this series of dazzling movements, launching basic attack skills. Boy, I really underestimated you. This combat experience must have been acquired through participating in many battles, right? Voldemort asked provocatively. As he spoke, another melon flew out. But why can't I feel your power? It's really an insult to the name of the Dark Lord. After quickly dodging the attack, Yang Tian refused to give in. Boy, before I kill you, I will tear your mouth apart. The tyrannical Voldemort stopped talking and focused on attacking. As time went by, Yang Tian also made a major discovery while attacking. Voldemort's cane-swinging gesture was very unique. That extremely strange cane-swinging motion could suddenly increase the attack frequency by 1/3. In other words, when he swung twice, the opponent had already cast 3 spells. This was based on the fact that Yang Tian had mastered many extremely special spell-casting gestures after the shocking incident in the restricted book area. But Voldemort's spell-casting gestures were completely different, and seemed to have formed a unique style. Seeing this, Yang Tian directly stopped the previous work of Thread 3 and concentrated on analyzing and deducing the spell-casting gestures. But distant water cannot quench immediate thirst after all. After the 2 sides were in a stalemate for 6 or 7 minutes, Yang Tian, who was already at a disadvantage in casting spells, began to feel hot and sweat on his forehead. He finally couldn't keep up with the pace. Haha, you're starting to breathe hard, kid. Are you tired? You dare to talk nonsense like that? I thought you were so powerful. After Voldemort's wild mockery, he cast a spell seemingly casually. Seeing this, Yang Tian had no time to say anything, but suddenly accelerated and rolled over, and leaped forward several steps, because he was careful enough to notice the difference in the color of the spell. Sure enough, a series of blue flames had risen along Yang Tian's original trajectory, along with ferocious faces in the flames. Yang Tian, however, didn't care. He took advantage of the long casting time of the fierce fire curse and transformed a large amount of debris and rubble in the room into sharp iron spikes. He waved his wand, and a huge torrent of spikes rushed towards Voldemort. Even though Voldemort was powerful and had a fast spellcasting speed, he was still stabbed several times while forcibly using the flying spell to dodge. Looking at the blood gushing out of his body, Voldemort felt deeply ashamed. He said with a sinister look, "Not bad, kid. You actually found out that this is the fiery curse. But so what? It will infinitely compress your space for movement, and I will let you burn to death in despair and pain." Yang Tian finally breathed a sigh of relief. He said casually, "Ah, Lord Dark Lord, you really disappoint me. Not only do you lack the strength, but you also like to brag. Just do whatever you want to do. Can you stop talking? After all this time, I am still standing here, aren't I?" Voldemort was completely furious. He was filled with murderous intent at this moment, and instantly launched the attack again. The 2 of them also fell into the famous scene of Mutual A in A Return to Nature. Time was passing, the fiend fire was burning, and the range of movement for the two was getting smaller and smaller. The corners of Voldemort's mouth began to curl up, as if victory was in sight. But at this moment, something unexpected happened. Chapter 211. But then a blue talisman suddenly appeared from the corner of the room and shot towards the blue fierce fire all over the ground. When the talisman touched the fierce fire, the blue flame seemed to be frozen and formed shining ice crystals. This freezing was still spreading. In just a few breaths, the fierce fire in the whole room was completely extinguished, leaving a whole room of flaming ice sculptures. "Who's there?" Voldemort roared in anger. As he spoke, he also sent a melon-eating blow to the place where the talisman appeared. But then he heard a bang and a figure swayed in the corner. Voldemort looked carefully and saw a picture of a fat boy's brown energy shield bursting. There was no doubt that the fat boy was Neville. A bite of the melon exploded the earth shield that he thought was extremely solid. At this time, Neville was somewhat panicked. However, he was not the same Neville as before. Although he was panicked, he quickly put up a shield for himself and then ran. But Voldemort had no time to chase Neville. He cast a flying spell again, turned into a black shadow, and avoided Yang Tian's disarming spell. "Humph, is that Neville? You're really patient, holding back until now to take action. But the ending will be the same, go to death with your friends." Voldemort attacked Neville immediately after landing. But just as the spell was cast, another talisman shot out from behind the ice sculpture on the side. Voldemort had no time to cast the spell, so he could only use magic wrapped around his hand to block it at will. But what he didn't expect was that when his hand touched the small piece of paper, the paper actually burst out with a powerful force, and the impact force was like a rapidly flying tiny meteorite, and his hand was broken. "Asshole!" Voldemort, who was injured again, attacked the ice sculpture. Hermione appeared behind the ice sculpture, but unfortunately, she had already run away. Next, talismans unexpectedly shot out from all directions. The different effects of the various talismans also left Voldemort covered in wounds. The tactics of trapping himself in a dungeon and then madly hitting himself with micrometeorites were shameless. The kid named Yang Tian was even more sinister. With helpers, he didn't have to deal with all the attacks, so he actually used a spell similar to Snape's shadowless sharpness. In the hands of the kid, this spell became purer and sharper. The hideous blood grooves on Voldemort's body and legs were clearly visible. Slowly, these attackers finally showed up one by one, including the bastard Yang Tian, a total of 9 people. Ah! When did so many people come in? Voldemort was a little furious. He used the flying spell frantically to dodge quickly and attacked anyone he found recklessly. But the effect is really not good. Even though the energy shield was shattered, these bastards could still hide underground? Can they have some shame? Voldemort was completely hysterical. He roared to the sky, and his endless murderous intent turned into a black storm and bombarded in all directions. Pansy and Daphne were knocked to the ground, and Neville and Hannah were swept by the storm and hit the wall of the room, spitting blood. It seemed that Voldemort was going to fight to the death. But at this moment, Professor Quirrell's weak voice rang out, "Master, you can't do this. My body can't hold on any longer. Shut up, just 1 minute. 1 minute, and I can kill them all." Voldemort's brutal voice sounded. The next moment, the huge gap was completely revealed. Voldemort burned his body's potential desperately, casting various spells as if they were free. Even Yang Tian was no longer relaxed as before, and could only barely block the attack with the dual effects of spells and talismans. But the friends were in a terrible situation. In less than a minute, most of the talismans on their bodies had been used up. They gradually gathered together in a panic. Voldemort, covered in blood, showed a cruel smile again. But at this moment, Yang Tian suddenly tapped the ice silkworm jade clothes on his body. In an instant, a huge energy shield enveloped all the friends. Voldemort's attack was unable to break it for a while. Yang Tian wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said, "Okay, everyone come behind me immediately." Upon hearing this, everyone hurried to Yang Tian to gather. Seeing that all his friends were safe, Yang Tian finally smiled. He said casually, "Everyone, today's training can only end here. You should understand the difference, right? Now, applaud and thank Mr. Voldemort." The friends lowered their heads in shame when they heard this, but they still applauded enthusiastically as Yang Tian requested. This scene confused Voldemort. He said angrily, "Boy, what do you mean by that? Are you humiliating me? You don't still think you can get away now, do you? Voldemort, last time when we were in the Forbidden Forest, I remember the small class had already started. Why don't you learn your lesson? Before he finished speaking, Yang Tian threw a handful of small yellow talismans at Voldemort like flowers scattering from the sky. Ha ha ha, Yang Tian, you don't think the same move can hurt me twice, do you? As he said that, he casually cast an iron armor spell to get the matter over with. The small talisman turned into sparks the moment it collided with the magic power of the iron armor spell. At the same time, Voldemort did not stop there. He hit the energy shield with another big melon. Yang Tian remained unmoved and continued to throw those small yellow talismans one by one. Haha, have you run out of new tricks? No matter how many of these broken things you throw, they can't break my defense. Voldemort laughed wildly. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. How come there was something different mixed in with the newly scattered pieces of paper? Unfortunately, he discovered it too late. Voldemort only had time to reinforce himself with another layer of shield charm before the talisman was already on him. Most of the small talismans still turned into sparks, but a dozen of the yellow talismans did not dissipate after touching the magic of the shield charm, but instead penetrated into it as if it were a place without a human. Then, they stuck tightly to Quirrell's body like psoriasis. Voldemort was shocked, but before he could react further, the talismans lit up at the same time. Not good! Voldemort shouted, trying to break free from the talismans, but it was too late. The lights on these talismans quickly connected into one, forming a huge magic net. Under the effect of the magic net, a huge recoil force was generated, which directly shook Voldemort's soul out of Quirrell's body. Of course, it's far from over. Although the soul was separated from the body, the recoil force of the magic net continued to impact Voldemort's soul, causing him great pain. What is this? Voldemort asked with difficulty. Yang Tian laughed and said, Okay, Mr. Voldemort. Since you are sincere in seeking advice, I will introduce it to you again. However, you must listen carefully in this small class. Tails, 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 this talisman is also the crystallization of the wisdom of our Chinese ancestors, an exorcism talisman. It is specially used to deal with ghosts. Very good, hee, very good. At this time, Voldemort had lost Quirrell's body and was floating alone in the air. His voice was so sinister and chilling, I will kill you. As the voice fell, Voldemort completely transformed into a ball of black mist, rushing towards Yang Tian frantically. Chapter 212. Yang Tian stared at the rapidly approaching black fog without any reaction, as if he was frightened. Even the little wizard not far away screamed and ran towards Yang Tian desperately. But at this moment, Yang Tian spoke, Alas, why don't you listen to my advice? After saying that, a blue talisman hidden in his palm shot out and flew straight towards the black fog that was nearby. The moment the two collided, it was like Mars colliding with the Earth. Huge amounts of energy exploded in all directions, blowing the friends all over the place, and even Yang Tian was forced to take several steps back. It was also at this moment that the blue talisman emitted endless suction force, and the black mist was quickly sucked into the talisman at a speed visible to the naked eye. Voldemort was completely panicked. He struggled madly to retreat. Unfortunately, he couldn't get rid of it. He desperately begged for mercy, What is this little piece of paper? Take it away and let me go. I can. However, it was all in vain. Before Voldemort could finish his words, all the black mist was sucked into the blue talisman. Looking at the talisman in his hand, Yang Tian smiled brightly, Now you know how powerful the soul-binding talisman is, right? When it comes to catching ghosts, China has a long history. You stay in there first. When I have time, I will definitely let you out and give you a thorough trial. I don't know if Voldemort in the talisman heard Yang Tian's words, the soul-binding talisman flipped violently a few times. After that, it completely returned to calm. All the friends cheered loudly, and then they looked at Yang Tian with shock and admiration. 8 people, holding a full set of talismans, struggled to withstand Voldemort's crazy attack. And this boy, relying on a magic wand and a few limited talismans, was able to injure the opponent several times. In the end, he even defeated and imprisoned the opponent with the magical talisman. Is it really that bad? Okay, let's cast a stunning spell on Professor Quirrell first, so that he won't do anything desperate after he wakes up. Yang Tian took the lead in making arrangements. Seeing that Hermione had already started, Yang Tian said seriously, everyone performed very well this time. It's your first time to participate in a battle, and you are facing a top wizard like Voldemort. It's rare for you to have such a performance. I know what everyone is thinking, but to be honest, I was not as good as you when I first participated in a battle. Oh, of course, although I was only 5 years old at that time. Tisk, I thought it was a comfort, but it turned out to be the sharpest knife. Penelope said dissatisfiedly, it seems that we have to order more Chinese food this month, otherwise it will not heal the wounds we have suffered. After opening his heart to his friends, Yang Tianping occasionally talked about his experiences when he was young. So, everyone naturally knew what he was talking about. But isn't it rude to compare a 5-year-old child who hasn't learned magic yet with us, the elites of Hogwarts? As a result, calls for Yang Tian to have more food came one after another. Wait, have we overlooked something? Zhang Qiu finally stepped forward to help. Why are we here? Isn't there a magic stone? Oh yeah, where's the Philosopher's Stone? It should be in this mirror, right? When we came in, Quirrell was studying it intently. I feel the same way. I don't believe that Quirrell, who is so careful, would not search the entire room carefully after entering the house. As expected, Zhang Qiu's rescue was successful. Friends joined in the discussion about the whereabouts of the Philosopher's Stone. But at this moment, "Hi, Hermione, what are you doing?" Padma patted Hermione on the shoulder and asked. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw Hermione staring at the mirror with a fascinated look on her face, and she didn't come back to her senses for a long time. Can this mirror see the future? Hermione, who was awakened, said excitedly, I actually saw that I have finished reading all the books. All the fields of magic have been conquered by me. In fact, she didn't say another sentence. In the mirror, she also saw that she had finally surpassed Yang Tian in all subjects. This was the reason for her fascination. The friends were very excited when they heard this, and they looked at the mirror eager to try it out. Okay, guys, this isn't a mirror that can foresee the future. If I'm not mistaken, this should be the mirror of Arist. Yang Tian explained helplessly, see the words on it. Ariststra eruoid u bakafruoid on wosi, which means I show you not your face, but your desire when turned around. Okay. The wise friends immediately lost interest after hearing this, and the process of finding the Philosopher's Stone came to a complete standstill. Seeing that everyone was at a loss, Yang Tian, who was familiar with the original story, did not want to waste any more time. He immediately called out, Neville, come with me. Bringing Neville to the mirror of Arist, Yang Tian continued, Neville, you try. I think you should be able to find the Philosopher's Stone. But why me? Neville asked puzzledly, looking at so many friends around him. Because you are the best candidate, and I trust you. Yang Tian replied. Then what should I do? Without too many words, Neville accepted this statement because that was what Yang Tian said. I don't know either, but I believe you can. Everyone is waiting for you, and we all hope that you can find the Philosopher's Stone. Then, we will bring the Philosopher's Stone to Dumbledore together and report to him everything that happened today. Although he said he didn't know, Yang Tian still guided him step by step. Neville slowly approached the mirror of Arist, only to see that his parents in the mirror had recovered. They and his grandmother were happily preparing for dinner, while his friends were sitting around chatting and waiting. Without a doubt, this was the scene he longed for the most. He really wanted to watch it for a while longer and see his parents' sober and happy smiles. But at this moment, Yang Tian patted his shoulder and said, when we become stronger, we should be able to heal them. Is it really possible? Neville suddenly woke up and asked in surprise. Why not? Magic is magical. As long as we keep learning and working hard, we will always succeed. This is much better than being obsessed with the mirror world. Yang Tian pressed Neville's shoulder hard and said, besides, I am sure I can cure them, but it may take some time. This was certainly not Yang Tian's perfunctory response. With the intelligent computer in hand, he had already thought about it. If the situation allowed, he would analyze the condition of Neville's parents. He had full confidence in the intelligent computer. Of course, I believe in you, Yang Tian, you have never let me down. Neville shed tears again. After calming down, Neville finally looked at the mirror of Arist again, muttering, where is the Philosopher's Stone? I must find it. Suddenly, Neville's pupils suddenly dilated, because he saw that the picture in the mirror was no longer that happy and warm picture, and now there was only himself in the mirror. Moreover, the self in the mirror was smiling at him outside the mirror. At the same time, the self in the mirror reached into his trouser pocket, took out a blood-red stone, winked at Neville outside the mirror, and then put the stone back into his pocket. At this moment, Neville outside the mirror suddenly felt his trouser pocket sink, as if something had really fallen into it. Neville touched it in shock, and took out the Philosopher's Stone in disbelief. He actually got it. Okay, guys, we've won a great victory, let's retreat. All the set goals were successfully completed, and Yang Tian laughed loudly. Inspired by him, all the friends left in triumph, hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, as if they had won a battle. Chapter 213. Maybe it was because the victory was too thrilling. Even on the way to the principal's office, the friends were still unable to extricate themselves from the excitement. They talked and laughed, and were very happy. But at this moment, a disgusting and familiar voice suddenly came, breaking the good mood of the friends. Who else could it be but the janitor Filch? I was wondering who would dare to do such a thing and hang out in the middle of the night. It turned out to be you. A bunch of bad guys. Filch hadn't finished his words when he noticed Professor Quirrell hovering behind them under a levitation spell. Wait, what is that? You actually attacked the professor. You all deserve to be hanged. I want. Filch, it's been so long since I taught you a lesson, and you're back to your old ways again? Put away your old ways. Yang Tian walked straight towards Filch with his wand. You, what are you going to do? I am. Filch was completely panicked when he saw who it was. This kid was simply his nightmare. Not only did he threaten him with his wand and slap him in the face time and time again, he also said that because of his revenge, he was investigated for several months and he even didn't have the face to walk around in school. Looking at Filch's resentful eyes, Yang Tian smiled casually and said, Haha, Filch, I have to say, I like the way you can't stand me but can't get rid of me. It's really pleasing to the eye. Then he stopped teasing the other party and immediately changed the subject. Okay, we are going to find Dumbledore now, and you must come with us. Why should I? Filch shrank back and looked bewildered. It seemed that these kids were the ones who made the mistake, but why were they so confident, as if they were the ones who made the mistake? No reason, it's just that the situation is serious, and your previous actions make me distrust you, and I'm worried that you will leak the news. He then looked at Pansy and said calmly, Pansy, keep an eye on him. If he dares to run, just cast a spell on him. Upon hearing this, Pansy drew her wand and pointed it at Filch without any hesitation. Filch was feeling very frustrated. He couldn't leave, nor could he stay. If he really left, he would become the laughingstock of the whole school tomorrow and he would never be able to hold his head up again. If he really stayed, what else could he say? These people would definitely take action. Just when Filch was in a dilemma, a cold and emotionless voice suddenly appeared, Yang Tian, you are still so good at bewitching. Look at what these students have become under your guidance. Night wandering, hurting professors, threatening school staff. Is there anything you can't do? Yang Tian was not at all panicked by this accusation. He said calmly, Professor Snape, please do not make any comments before you have figured out the matter. This is not in line with the realistic temperament of a professor. Also, the most important thing you should do now is to contact Dumbledore and take us to the principal's office. This matter is very serious and is related to the things you are protecting in the restricted area on the 4th floor. Snape, who was about to get angry, was stunned when he heard this. He then said, if you have anything to say, you can tell me now. I think I can handle it impartially. I'm afraid that won't work, Professor Snape. There are some things you can't handle, like right now. Are you questioning my loyalty? I'm sorry, Professor. I'm worried about your strength and decision-making ability. After a heated argument, the two began to stare at each other with death. Finally, Dumbledore is not at Hogwarts at this time, said Snape. But I think you have a way to notify him, right? Yang Tian insisted. Well, kid, if you can't come up with an answer that can convince me and Dumbledore, believe me, you will be in trouble. Snape said with cold eyes. That's no problem, but before Dumbledore comes back, I need Professor Flitwick, Professor McGonagall and Professor Sprout, and of course, you, to stay with us until Dumbledore comes back. Yang Tian didn't think his request was excessive. According to the original story, Harry seemed to have only played this one game for the entire school year. But even so, it was already well received. Now, what they had done was more thorough and perfect than his. As long as there was no shady dealings, they deserved this treatment. Yang Tian firmly believed that if he wanted to gain favor and reputation, he had to make it known to everyone. For the consequences of sneaking around and playing mysterious, please refer to the original Goblet of Fire. Good fellow, how can he play if even his own students don't believe him? Yang Tian's words obviously upset Snape again. So, a new round of death stares between the two began. After a long time, Snape said again, "You wait here, I will arrange it now." Soon, the three deans arrived. They smiled and greeted everyone, then led the way without saying a word. Yang Tian and his friends also smiled and saluted without saying a word. Together with the unconscious Professor Quirrell and the trembling Filch, everyone rushed to the headmaster's office. About an hour later, Dumbledore finally pushed open the door of the headmaster's office, exhausted, and Snape appeared behind him. "Oh, it's hard to imagine, kids. Are you in such a good mental state now? Even late at night, you still sit still and play level-breaking games." Although Dumbledore looked very tired, he still gave his opening remarks humorously. The students were not panicked when they heard this, and they showed a proud look. This action undoubtedly let the headmaster and the dean know that they had done something big, but after waiting for a long time, no one spoke. Only Yang Tian's eyes kept glancing in the direction where Filch was standing. "Well, Filch feels very wronged. You asked me to come here, not me. Why are you looking at me at this time?" Dumbledore understood and said to Filch, "Argus, you should go back and rest first. But please remember that you must not reveal even a word of what happened tonight. You didn't see anyone tonight?" "Yes, Principal Dumbledore." Filch left with a conflicting feeling of relief and loneliness. As the door of the principal's office closed, Yang Tian's first words stunned all the professors. "Principal, my friends and I broke through the checkpoints in the restricted area and found the Philosopher's Stone. Of course, more importantly, we captured Voldemort's soul." "What did you say?" Dumbledore and the four deans exclaimed in unison. Chapter 214. Faced with the professor's disbelief, Penelope stepped forward to explain, "The cause of this matter is Professor Quirrell. We found that his problem started when Yang Tian was injured." She spoke with great emotion, revealing the cause and effect of the whole incident. Penelope's story caused an uproar at the scene, and professors began to ask questions one after another. "How dare you fight with an adult wizard, even the Dark Lord? Are you hurt?" Professor McGonagall hurried forward to check. "How could it be possible that Voldemort followed Quirrell into Hogwarts?" Professor Sprout said in shock. "Children, this is a very dangerous thing. Don't do it next time," Professor Flitwick warned seriously. "So, do you have any evidence for everything you just said?" Snape questioned. "Of course." Facing Snape's questioning, Yang Tian said he was not panicked at all. He took out the soul-binding talisman with a smile, and after turning his hand seals one after another, the blue talisman gradually changed and finally turned into an illusory cage. The change in the cage seemed to have alarmed Voldemort inside, and he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Asshole, damn brat, let me out, or you will die miserably. If you have the guts, don't use those two little pieces of paper, let's have a good fight." Dumbledore looked at the scene in the transparent cage and lost his composure. He asked in surprise, "Tom, is it really you? Dumbledore? Why are you here?" "Oh, I see, it turns out that this kid is just a trap, everything was designed by you. Voldemort went crazy, but don't be complacent. You can't kill me, I will come back again." As he said that, he stared at Snape. Before he finished speaking, the blue talisman had returned to its original appearance. But Yang Tian said weakly with sweat all over his face, "Sorry, my magic power is limited now, and I can only hold on for so long." The four deans were clearly still in shock, and Dumbledore was ashamed when he heard this. "My goodness, not everyone can catch Voldemort, right?" After a long pause, Flitwick asked worriedly, "Are you sure that Quirrell has surrendered to the Dark Lord and was not forced? How should I put it? At least from their conversation, he called Voldemort his master and put Voldemort's interests first in everything. As for whether there are other inside stories, we don't know." Yang Tian answered solemnly, and the other friends also responded. "What about the Philosopher's Stone? You just said that you got the Philosopher's Stone." Snape looked at the boy in front of him with contradiction and asked. Hearing this, Yang Tian hurriedly pushed Neville in front of everyone with a smile. Neville also quickly stepped forward and awkwardly handed over the Philosopher's Stone. Dumbledore didn't even look at the Philosopher's Stone. At this moment, he stared at Yang Tian with bright eyes and asked, "Why is it Neville?" Yang Tian was stunned for a moment, then offered the answer he had prepared long ago, "It's actually an attempt, right? I'm not completely sure. According to Voldemort, the Philosopher's Stone is hidden in the Mirror of East, but with his advanced magic level, he has no way to crack it, and the headmaster's actions also indirectly confirm this point. If there is a safer place to put the Philosopher's Stone, it must be next to the headmaster, not in the game for the entertainment of young wizards, so I guess the headmaster must be absolutely sure that Voldemort will not be able to get the Philosopher's Stone no matter what. Then the question is, why is the headmaster so confident? It must not be a test of magic, but a test of human heart. So I made a bold guess that those who want to find the Philosopher's Stone cannot obtain it, but if it is so simple, it seems that no one can find it anymore, so I thought of another possibility, that only those who want to find it but don't want to use it can take the Philosopher's Stone out of the mirror." In fact, Yang Tian's analysis was already far-fetched, but his reverse reasoning after knowing the answer and his preconceived inferences made everyone feel that this was indeed the case. Dumbledore's eyes became brighter, and he continued to ask, "What happened next?" Yang Tian smiled shyly and said, "This request seems simple, but it is actually very difficult. At least I can't do it. If I can find the Philosopher's Stone, I will definitely use it and study it seriously. But I know Neville can do it, because of his loyalty and integrity. He will do his best to complete the entrustment given to him by his friends, rather than considering personal gains and losses. So, it should be him, right?" Neville looked at Yang Tian excitedly. As expected, his good brother understood him and he had never let him down. Everyone present showed expressions of sudden enlightenment. As for Dumbledore, he already had admiration written all over his face. Only Snape's expression was still conflicted. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't say anything. Seeing that everyone had no more questions, Dumbledore finally announced, "Well, everyone, you have all worked hard today. You should go back to bed first, it will be dawn soon. However, I have to delay Yang Tian for a little while." Looking at the completely closed door of the headmaster's office, Dumbledore finally asked tentatively, "Can you give this to me?" Yang Tian was stunned, then smiled bitterly and said, "Principal, I'm afraid this won't work. After all, this is just a talisman, it can't hold him forever. When the energy in the talisman disappears, it won't be able to hold him back anymore." Dumbledore was shocked and asked quickly, "What are you going to do? If Voldemort escapes again, it will definitely be a disaster." Yang Tian smiled confidently and said, "The best way at the moment is to suppress him in the Yang family." Dumbledore said cautiously, "Are you sure this will work? You must understand that if he escapes, your family will also suffer great harm." Yang Tian said solemnly, "Please rest assured, Principal. No matter how powerful Voldemort is, he is only a spirit now. China has many ways to suppress ghosts, which is guaranteed to be foolproof." Actually, Yang Tian didn't tell the truth. He didn't want to hand over Voldemort to the Yang family. He just wanted to keep this legendary village chief close to him. But before that, he needed to ask his grandfather for a treasure that could hold his soul. You know, Voldemort had too many secrets. What he said before the final battle also puzzled Yang Tian. He wanted to crack it all by himself. Of course, Yang Tian still had tons of soul magic that needed an experimental subject, right? At this time, Dumbledore was seriously looking at the child in front of him again. From this child, he really saw another way to deal with Voldemort. If everything is as expected, then can the remaining parts be imprisoned in the same way? What about Harry? Maybe there is really no need to carry out that cold plan? Chapter 215. Principal, can you let me see the Philosopher's Stone? Seeing Dumbledore lost in thought, Yang Tian asked unexpectedly. Of course. Dumbledore didn't take Yang Tian's request too seriously, but handed it over casually. After Yang Tian thanked him cheerfully, he took the Philosopher's Stone in his hand and rubbed it. This was the first time he had touched the Philosopher's Stone in person. It was known as the most magical item in the magic world. Of course, Yang Tian was not just here for viewing. He had already asked Thread 3 of the intelligent brain to start analyzing it. "Thank you for everything you have done for Hogwarts, my dear child." Dumbledore finally woke up from his thoughts and said sincerely. "Principal, you know, verbal praise doesn't mean much to me. How about something practical? At this time, Yang Tian once again turned into a mercenary little fox. Dumbledore did not feel disgusted with Yang Tian. Instead, he asked with a smile, "Tell me, boy, what do you want this time? Don't worry about that for now." "Hehe, what I mean is, should we settle the last bill first?" Yang Tian smiled shyly. "Are you talking about the restricted area of the library? You should also feel sorry for your old headmaster? It was you who instigated Algeria." Dumbledore said helplessly. No, Principal, you misunderstood. Didn't I tell you everything? There's no rush for the banned area. I can finish reading it before the holiday." Yang Tian didn't dare let the principal finish his words and hurriedly explained. "So what do you mean?" Dumbledore was a little confused. "What I want to say is, didn't we sign an unbreakable oath?" Yang Tian continued shyly. "Have you got a target?" Dumbledore asked in surprise, but before he could finish his words, his heart skipped a beat when he saw Yang Tian looking at the Philosopher's Stone with excitement. Sure enough, Yang Tian asked, "This Philosopher's Stone should belong to Mr. Nicholas Flamel, right?" Dumbledore was quite speechless after his thoughts were confirmed. He said weakly, "You don't want Nicholas Flamel to teach you alchemy, do you?" "Principal, you are so awesome. I just mentioned it, and you already know all my thoughts." Yang Tian said with surprise. "Don't say these compliments. It's no different from saying it directly." Dumbledore was much calmer at this time. "I just want to know one thing. Did you think of this all along? It's not that exaggerated." Yang Tian said embarrassedly, "I just confirmed the general direction. Sometimes I feel that you have a deep mind." "Are you really an 11-year-old child?" Dumbledore said with emotion. "Professor Dumbledore, don't think about everything so complicatedly. If you were in my position and accidentally knew the relationship between Mr. Nicholas Flamel and the Philosopher's Stone, what would you do? In fact, I'm just trying to prove that I'm worthy." Yang Tian said casually. Dumbledore nodded silently after hearing this. "I have to say, if it were him, he would probably make the same choice, right? Well, in accordance with our unbreakable oath, I will try my best to get you the opportunity to become my apprentice. But I can't guarantee anything. Nicholas Flamel's ideas are very different now," Dumbledore said seriously. Yang Tian was shocked. Could it be that Nico Flamel had already decided to die? He was anxious and said, "I am naturally grateful to the principal for trying his best to persuade him. However, can the principal contact Mr. Nico Flamel as soon as possible to confirm this matter? Before things reach an irreversible point, I also look forward to meeting him and making a final attempt." Dumbledore felt that this boy seemed to know something, but he did not say much and directly agreed, "Okay, I can promise you this. Just wait for my news in the next 2 days." Yang Tian was overjoyed when he heard this. He had to admit that since the last misunderstanding was resolved, he seemed to be treated no less than the protagonist. "Now let's talk about this reward. What do you want?" Dumbledore asked. "This time? I really haven't thought it through this time. How about giving me some time so I can think about it carefully?" This action was originally a spur-of-the-moment decision. How could Yang Tian think of any benefits? Dumbledore thought for a moment and said, "Okay then. I'll give you 10 days. Give me an accurate answer within 10 days." "Yes, Principal." Yang Tian was ready to go back and think about it, but now, by the way, Principal, did you rush back from Albania? "Yes." Dumbledore answered without any hesitation, "Do you want to ask about the situation over there?" Seeing Yang Tian's expectant eyes, the old principal continued, "Okay, then I'll tell you. The situation over there is a bit bad now. Compared to the reconnaissance report, I saw more green robes and blue robes." After a pause, he said inexplicably, "Besides, I also saw my old friend." Yang Tian was stunned and said, "You mean Alger? The chief magician of the palace?" "Yes, it's him." Dumbledore's tone was full of disbelief. "I really didn't expect that he is still alive today. What I didn't expect was that time didn't leave any traces on him. I was still a young man back then, but now I am already an old man, but he is still the same as before. Why is this happening?" Yang Tian was also very curious. "It's not clear for now. And I have a suspicion that the young-looking red-robed man is very likely a figure from that period. They should have mastered something unknown." Dumbledore's words revealed deep doubt. I really don't understand what the principal means. Yang Tian was a little stunned for a moment. Dumbledore was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, "It's not your fault, kid. You haven't experienced that era. Besides, not all history will be recorded and passed down truthfully. In fact, in the era when imperial power was supreme, the work of court magicians was not only to fight, but also an important task was to study how to prolong the lifespan of royal family members. To put it bluntly, who wants to be immortal?" Hearing this, Yang Tian's brain seemed to split apart. Thinking about Dumbledore's words, and then thinking about Voldemort's abnormal answer, he seemed to have grasped the core of this organization. What about extending the life of royal family members? What about attacking the wizarding world? What about ruling the Muggle world? Those are just the external appearance of this organization. They have never been for these things. Maybe they are just for research on immortality? Research on breakthroughs in magic? Research on the evolution of species? Or research on their own breakthroughs? They use the whole of Britain, no, maybe the whole of the West, as their pasture, and any strange place will be confined for research. Perhaps, all the creatures and materials on this earth are the nutrients for those at the top of the pyramid to move forward? The more he thought about it, the colder he felt. He couldn't help but tell Dumbledore his thoughts, and Dumbledore immediately fell into deep thought. Maybe this was the answer closest to the truth? The two were speechless for a long time. In the end, it was Yang Tian who came back to his senses first. "Principal, what is the current situation in Albania? Their social order is indeed gradually collapsing, and vicious incidents are happening frequently. I do feel the shadow of magic behind all this." Dumbledore's expression was quite serious at this time, but this time it was indeed too hasty, "and I was just doing a simple investigation. After finishing things here, I will go there again. It's really like one wave has not yet settled, another wave comes." Chapter 216. Things developed in the same way as what Yang Tian and Dumbledore had discussed. In the next few days, a piece of news spread quickly in Hogwarts. Voldemort appeared again, and fortunately, he was defeated again, and Professor Quirrell, who was Voldemort's servant and successfully brought Voldemort into Hogwarts, has been unconscious in the infirmary ward ever since. Therefore, Professor Snape will teach the remaining defense against the dark arts courses this semester. No one believed such outrageous news at first, but when the old bat really appeared in the defense against the dark arts class, and when a sick student went to the infirmary and unexpectedly found Hagrid and Filch guarding the door of the ward, everyone was shocked. More importantly, the school did not take any measures against the rumors. No details were released, and no clarification was made. In short, they just let it go. The direct consequence of this approach was that the news spread quickly beyond Hogwarts and into the entire wizarding world. Rumors spread everywhere, and the wizarding world was completely shaken. In order to quell these rumors, Minister of Magic Fudge, head of the Auror Office Scrimgeour, and Senior Under Minister of Magic Dolores Umbridge came to Hogwarts together. In the headmaster's office, Dumbledore met the three people from the Ministry of Magic with a smile. Although everyone was chatting cordially, the faces of the three people looked somewhat unnatural. But at this moment, the door was gently pushed open, and a little head appeared. "Principal, I heard from Professor McGonagall that you are looking for me." "That's right, Yang Tian, come in," Dumbledore said with a smile. After hearing this, Yang Tian walked into the principal's office like a good boy. Seeing the little guy who had been of great help to him in his work, Scrimgeour took the initiative to step forward and greeted him. "Hi, long time no see, Yang Tian." Yang Tian quickly smiled back. Minister Fudge put on his signature fake smile and nodded in greeting, but anyone could see the alienation in his expression, as if he and Yang Tian didn't know each other at all. Naturally, there was no need for Yang Tian to indulge such a minister, so he nodded in response. Umbridge, who had seen everything, thought she had seen through it all. She looked at Yang Tian with contempt and said with a hint of sarcasm, "Is this the hero who defeated Voldemort in the rumors?" Faced with the provocation, Yang Tian remained unmoved. He wasn't even interested in looking at Umbridge and simply found an empty seat and sat down. "You are so rude. Didn't your parents teach you that you should politely stand up and answer questions from your elders?" "Ms. Umbridge, the principle that the Fry family has always believed in is that only when others are humble and polite to me will I treat others with courtesy," Yang Tian retorted firmly, "but if someone dares to provoke her, the people of my Fry family will not slap her in the face, which is already considered friendly to her. I advise you, before you act sarcastic, think about your identity first, and don't take yourself too seriously. Umbridge's face was frighteningly ugly when someone attacked her face to face. She had never thought that a little brat would dare to talk to her like that. What was even more hateful was that he kept using the Fry family to pressure her. But what could she do? Turn against him? Obviously not. She swore in her heart that she would never let this little brat have an easy time. After taking a few deep breaths and trying to adjust her mood, Umbridge finally said, "Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Yang Tian. Then please tell me the details of this rumor that has caused panic in the entire wizarding world." "Ha ha ha, Ms. Umbridge, you are really impatient." Yang Tian shook his head in disdain and pointed out, "You have to understand one thing. As a politician or official, it is very unwise to blindly jump out and express your opinion before your superiors have expressed their opinions. This is a manifestation of political immaturity and can easily put you in a passive position, or, you simply don't care what your superiors think of you. You dare to slander me." Umbridge was trembling with anger. She looked at Yang Tiandao with hatred. "But why can't you understand that this is your political immaturity?" "Ha ha ha," Yang Tian responded mercilessly. "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to the point." Fudge was a little embarrassed, but he didn't dare to turn hostile. His time in office was too short, and he didn't want to offend either Dumbledore or the alliance of the Foley family. Therefore, he could only play the game of peace with a gloomy look. Hearing this, Yang Tian finally stopped being sarcastic and said enthusiastically, "Minister Fudge, I have to say that your coming this time is very wise. If your choice is equally wise, then you should be able to firmly secure the position of Minister of Magic." "I don't quite understand what you mean." Fudge's heart moved, but he still decided to wait and see. This is a planned operation to capture Voldemort that involves the Ministry of Magic, Hogwarts school authorities, and some students. Yang Tian smiled and said, "Just think about it. During your term, if you can defeat Voldemort and solve the mess left by the previous Ministry of Magic, how much fame you will gain. That requires Voldemort to exist." Without waiting for anyone else to speak, Umbridge interrupted again with gritted teeth. But Yang Tian was destined to ignore her and continued to describe the details. The Ministry of Magic first discovered the clue from the robbery of Gringotts during the holiday. Although the goblins of Gringotts claimed that no property was lost, the colleagues in the Ministry of Magic, who were dedicated to the public, keenly felt that something was wrong. They looked for clues and traced the case all the way, but finally found that the suspect Quirrell had sneaked into Hogwarts as a professor. For the safety of the students and to avoid alerting the enemy, the Ministry of Magic urgently contacted the school to find out Quirrell's purpose for entering Hogwarts. After careful consultation between the two sides, it was finally decided that Mr. Scrimgeour and many professors would work together to set up a trap and use the fake Philosopher's Stone, which is quite famous in the wizarding world, as bait to lure Quirrell into the trap. However, Quirrell was very vigilant. Although he had a desire for the fake Philosopher's Stone, he kept it to himself. Finally, after half a year of forbearance, Quirrell finally found an opportunity when the Aurors were on duty and took action. Fortunately, a group of young wizards who discovered Quirrell's abnormality through clues showed up in time. They were brave and fearless, and they worked well together. In addition, they successfully stopped Quirrell from plotting evil, thanks to the traps set by the Ministry of Magic and the school. But at the same time, they also discovered a shocking secret. Quirrell was not alone, he was Voldemort's servant, and Voldemort's spirit lived in his body, and the scarf wrapped around his head all day was the best cover. He also entered Hogwarts under Voldemort's instructions, trying to find a chance for rebirth. So, after a fierce battle, relying on the power of unity and the power of the trap, Quirrell and Voldemort's spirit were finally captured. After Yang Tian finished speaking, he looked at Fudge with a smile on his face. After a long silence, Fudge finally asked, "I have to say, the story is indeed very attractive. But where is the evidence?" Chapter 217. Yang Tian was not annoyed at all. He confidently took out the soul-binding talisman again and said, "Voldemort's soul is in this talisman, but I must emphasize that the talisman has a limited lifespan and cannot be used repeatedly. I hope that after this verification, everyone will stop questioning this issue." "Of course." Fudge gave an affirmative answer. He also wanted to see how this boastful boy would end up. Yang Tian didn't waste any more words. He flipped his hand seals one after another, and the blue talisman turned into an illusory cage again. "You little rascal, who did you bring to visit this time? I've seen through you. You want to humiliate me with these petty tricks. Don't think that you can trample on the dignity of the great Dark Lord just because you have imprisoned my soul with conspiracy and trickery. If you have the guts, don't use those 2 little pieces of paper. Let's have a good fight. This was the second time Voldemort mentioned the little pieces of paper, which showed how much psychological shadow the talisman had caused him. But seeing the scene before their eyes, the 3 members of the Ministry of Magic were completely upset. They jumped up from the sofa like springs. Fudge's forehead was sweating, and he kept backing away slowly. Scrimgeour drew out his wand and stood by Fudge with a serious face. The worst was Umbridge, who had never really faced a war, and she was so scared that she fell to the ground, and kept moving backwards while crying and screaming. The bewilderment of the 3 naturally attracted Voldemort's attention. After just one look, the Dark Lord said disdainfully, "Who do I think it is?" "Fudge, Scrimgeour, oh, this is Umbridge, right? Look at how you are afraid of death, you are really a bunch of hopeless wastes. Don't be complacent. You are a prisoner now. If you can get out, I don't mind fighting you to the death and fulfilling my oath with blood." Although Scrimgeour's upper and lower teeth were chattering uncontrollably, he still tried his best to maintain the dignity of the Auror. But Voldemort had completely lost interest in him, and instead looked at Yang Tian with interest and said, "Boy, you refused to join the Great Dark Lord when I asked you to. Look at what's around you. Don't worry about my affairs. Just think about how you will spend the future." Yang Tian said disdainfully. Voldemort did not respond immediately. Instead, he looked at everyone present viciously before saying grimly, "Don't be complacent. I still say the same thing. The day I return will be the day you die." Before he finished speaking, the blue talisman returned to its original appearance. Yang Tian shrugged and said, "Sorry, my magic power is limited. I can only hold on for so long." Seeing the horrible nightmare in their memories finally disappear, the 3 of them couldn't help but feel relieved. Scrimgeour breathed a sigh of relief and put away his wand. Umbridge remained kneeling and sobbed softly. Only Fudge looked lost and kept muttering, He actually came back. What should I do? The wizarding world will be in chaos, and I will also." Perhaps, it was the fear that was engraved in the bones during the last wizard war? "Okay, Minister Fudge, Voldemort's soul has been imprisoned. You don't have to worry about the safety of the wizarding world for the time being." Yang Tian said casually. "That's right. He's been caught." Fudge, who had been in a daze, came back to his senses as if he had grabbed a life-saving straw. How frustrated he was just now, how excited he was now. Great, the previous minister did not completely eliminate Voldemort, but with the hard work of the colleagues in the current Ministry of Magic. No, with the great assistance of the teachers and students of Hogwarts. He hadn't finished speaking when he stopped talking involuntarily. At this moment, he was being stared at by the little boy opposite him. Even though he was a senior politician with thick skin, he still felt his face turn red. Yang Tian did not make any sarcastic remarks, but said sincerely, "Mr. Fudge, I believe you must understand one thing. In an action, only when all parties involved gain benefits, will people be willing to cooperate with you. There is an idiom in China that goes, you can't get fat if you eat alone." After a pause, he said seriously, "The version I just described is the final version of this incident. This is the bottom line for further discussion." Fudge was already in high spirits. He no longer dared to treat the person in front of him as a child. This person was like a greedy businessman and a hypocritical politician. He always spoke to the point. He finally understood why Dumbledore remained silent and watched the situation develop. Compared with Yang Tian, Fudge was even more willing to face Dumbledore, because Dumbledore wanted to save face. Forcing himself to sort out his chaotic thoughts, Fudge finally asked calmly, "Then tell me your request. I don't think you will ask me or the Ministry of Magic for no reason. What do you want?" "It's not what I want, Minister Fudge. I've made it very clear just now, we want a win-win situation for all 3. Yang Tian smiled and reminded, "In this incident, the Ministry of Magic obviously gained benefits. Without having to contribute a bit, it can gain huge fame, merit and a captive quirrell. So, what can Hogwarts gain?" Before anyone could react, Yang Tian continued, "I think greater autonomy would be a good choice for a magic school." "What autonomy?" "All people, things and objects in the wizarding world must be under the framework of the Ministry of Magic and must unconditionally accept the supervision and jurisdiction of the Ministry of Magic." Umbridge screamed in anger. "Oh? Ms. Umbridge, do you really think so? Then I really worry about the future of the Ministry of Magic." Unconditionally accept the supervision and jurisdiction of the Ministry of Magic? Are you crazy? Yang Tian retorted mercilessly. Mr. Yang Tian, although my subordinate's statements are indeed too radical, I have to say that this condition puts me in a difficult position. Although Hogwarts is just a school, necessary constraints are still needed, aren't they? Fudge frowned, looked at Umbridge, and said sincerely. Minister Fudge, there are so many wizards in the whole of Britain, and there are so many places that need to be managed. Why does the Ministry of Magic always keep an eye on Hogwarts? After all, the students here have completed 7 years of study, their final destination is to enter the society and the magical world. Seeing Fudge, who was unmoved, Yang Tian had to frown again and said, Okay, then Hogwarts will take a step back. The Ministry of Magic shall not send personnel to Hogwarts under any name to interfere with Hogwarts teaching tasks, it shall not directly expel Hogwarts professors and students under any name, it shall not dismiss Principal Dumbledore under any name. Oh, child, why do you think so? The Ministry of Magic will not do such a thing. We also hope that Hogwarts will get better and better. Fudge said in surprise and confusion, and I have great trust in Dumbledore. I believe Dumbledore will definitely lead Hogwarts to create brilliance. If so, where does the dismissal come from? As he said this, he looked at Dumbledore in an extremely unnatural way, expressing his disbelief. Hearing this, Yang Tian smiled meaningfully and said, Since you have agreed to the above, let's put it in writing. Chapter 218. When Fudge heard that it had to be put into a document, he immediately hesitated. He couldn't help but delay and said, Isn't this necessary? After all. So, the Ministry of Magic is not going to give Hogwarts any benefits, but instead wants to take credit for it. Yang Tian's displeasure was obvious, and he interrupted the other party directly. Well. Fudge pondered the pros and cons carefully, and finally said helplessly, Okay, let's implement the terms just now into a formal document of the Ministry of Magic. This is also a support for Hogwarts. However, Hogwarts is not a lawless place, and the relevant laws of the Ministry of Magic must still be observed. The actual benefits had already been taken, so there was no need for Yang Tian to try his luck with words, so he just agreed to it casually. Having resolved most of the contradictions in this negotiation, Yang Tian said with a sense of relief, Okay, now it should be a small reward for us kids. I think this is not difficult, right? It should be, but considering your performance just now, I have no idea at all. Just tell me your conditions. Fudge said with a wry smile without daring to relax at all. Yang Tian laughed when he heard this and said, You are really worrying too much this time. My companions and I are just ordinary little wizards in Hogwarts. We really don't have any special needs. As for what kind of reward the Ministry of Magic can give us, I think it is up to you and Headmaster Dumbledore to discuss and decide together. Such an answer really surprised Fudge and the others. How could such a smart little guy choose to back down when it came to fighting for his own interests? But when I think about it, I feel it is a difficult problem. This seemingly undemanding approach, which is based entirely on your own wishes, seems to be the most difficult to deal with, right? We are all decent people, can the Ministry of Magic really do such an indecent thing? Fudge couldn't think of a suitable reward at the moment, so he stopped thinking about it and focused on the aftermath of the incident. There is another crucial question, how to deal with Voldemort's soul. Can it be completely wiped out? Dumbledore, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke up, This is actually a very difficult thing, at least in my opinion. In the process of destroying the soul, even if there is only a trace of it escaping, it is equivalent to giving the other party a chance to live again. Yang Tian immediately responded, So the best way is to follow our Eastern practice and completely suppress its soul in our Yang family. Is this still possible? Is there any risk of escape? Fudge couldn't help but worry while breathing a sigh of relief. Don't worry, China is still very confident in suppressing souls and bodies. Yang Tian said confidently. But at this moment, Umbridge interrupted sinisterly, The most worrying thing is that if someone steals and secretly releases the Dark Lord, it will be a disaster for the British wizarding world. We really shouldn't hand the handle to others. Yang Tian was even more disdainful after hearing this. Ms. Umbridge, are you sure that these ideas you have now are based on thinking? You? What do you mean? I was the one who captured Voldemort, and this bastard hates me the most now. And I want to let him out? What on earth are you thinking? Yang Tian was completely furious. You. Umbridge was speechless and could only lower her head in shame. Fudge frowned at the stupid woman again, then hesitantly asked, I have another idea I'd like to discuss with you all. Can we hold a public trial or public display of Voldemort in a public event? It doesn't have to be too long, 1 to 2 hours will be enough. Fudge, are you really going to do this? Dumbledore asked in surprise. I'm sorry, Dumbledore, I have my reasons for having to do this. Since we have chosen to publicize this matter in the name of the Ministry of Magic, we must make the case solid and not give people any chance to criticize. And Voldemort's body or soul can crush all rumors. Fudge said solemnly. But if an accident occurs and Voldemort's soul escapes, it will be a disaster for the entire wizarding world. Dumbledore frowned. Indeed, Dumbledore. So we will have to rely on your help when the time comes. With the help of Scrimgeour's Aurors, I think we can ensure that everything is foolproof, right? Fudge complimented. Well, although I don't agree to take such a big risk to implement this plan, if you insist, I will still try my best. Looking at Fudge's stubborn performance, Dumbledore had no choice but to agree. In fact, Yang Tian didn't want to cause trouble, but looking at the current situation, he could only say helplessly. I'm sorry, if that's the case, I have to explain something. As you have seen just now, with my personal ability, I really can't support the 1 to 2 hours of consumption you expect. So if you insist on doing this, I have to contact Grandpa and use the little power of the Yang family to complete this matter. As for the specific situation, you should wait until I ask clearly before giving me a reply, okay? Fudge finally felt relieved. He quickly put on his signature hypocritical smile and said, Thank you for your help. I look forward to hearing from you. Seeing that there was nothing else important, Yang Tian finally stood up, bowed, and left leisurely. Only Dumbledore and the 3 members of the Ministry of Magic were left to discuss the rewards for the 9 young wizards. That night, Meng Jiao left Hogwarts with a secret letter, and her destination was Zabanai Manor. The content of the letter was very simple, discussing the possibility of turning Dolores Umbridge and Rita Skeeter into her own people. Although Yang Tian did not know the final result of the discussion in the principal's office, and of course, he was not interested in the result, the next day, Rita Skeeter, a special reporter for the Daily Prophet, came to Hogwarts and invited all the young wizards who participated in the incident to be interviewed, which seemed to indicate that the reward was not simple. Regarding this matter, Yang Tian also sought the opinions of his friends. Yang Tian himself believed that this was a very good opportunity to improve his reputation, but if anyone did not want to be in the limelight and was afraid of attracting the attention of the Death Eaters or the mysterious organization, they could choose to hide behind the scenes. But obviously, Yang Tian was overthinking, and his friends were not afraid. Therefore, in the next half-day, the 9-member team accepted Rita's interviews one by one. Of course, with Mrs. Zabanai's secret greeting, Rita changed her usual sharp interview style and appeared kind and gentle, committed to restoring the truth of the matter. The 9 friends also gave Rita enough face. For this interview, the 9 people sat together and carefully prepared the script. It can be said that they contributed a lot. It was also under this premise that the interview went very smoothly. Rita slowly assembled a fierce battle of mutual help, mutual trust, and mutual redemption from the different perspectives of the 9 people, and thoroughly presented it to everyone. I would like to emphasize that there are no talismans in this script. Chapter 219. The next day, when the Daily Prophet was published, Hogwarts was in an uproar, and the entire wizarding world was in an uproar. A spy war and action drama set by Yang Tian, expanded by Fudge and Scrimgeour, supplemented by many Aurors, and polished by Rita finally appeared in the newspaper, occupying a full 8 pages. The ups and downs and twists and turns in it really made readers unable to stop. At the same time, the Ministry of Magic and Hogwarts also received applause. In particular, the 9 members of Hogwarts became the objects of pursuit by the majority of wizards, and letters of greeting and concern came like snowflakes. Of course, among the numerous praises and admiration, there are also many doubts. Many people firmly believe that the Dark Lord had died at the hands of Harry Potter in the last Wizard War, and the Ministry of Magic and the teachers and students of Hogwarts are undoubtedly putting on a show. Moreover, as time goes by, such doubts continue to spread. However, a notice from the Ministry of Magic shut up all these people. The content of the notice was very simple. In the commendation meeting for relevant personnel later, there would be a segment where the Dark Lord's soul would be displayed to the public. The details of the meeting would be announced later. The Ministry of Magic sincerely welcomes every enthusiastic wizard to come and watch the ceremony. Good man, what else can we say? Just wait and see the evidence. Almost at the same time, the group of 9 was surrounded by several sad faces. It was speechless. The 9 of them finally got rid of the enthusiastic crowd and ran towards the abandoned classroom in a panic, but they were intercepted by these old people halfway. The Weasley brothers, Angelina, Elena, Cedric, and the Malfoy trio. Yang Tian couldn't figure it out. How could these people who were so hostile to each other before come together to block them? Moreover, what the hell is this expression? Before Yang Tian and the others could ask, George took the lead and fired, Yang Tian. There is such a fun thing, but you didn't call us. You don't treat us as brothers at all. That's right, that's so mean. Fred also shouted. Although the others did not speak, the resentment in their eyes was visible to the naked eye. That's not the case. It's not that I won't take you with me this time. It's just an accident, okay? Yang Tian was speechless. I really can't take you with me. We haven't reached that level of trust yet. But can I say this? Humph. There was no need for anyone else to speak, as Senior Elena's tone had already expressed everyone's views. Penelope hurriedly explained, this time it was indeed an accident. Remember the dark holy water from before? It almost killed Yang Tian. Several people nodded when they heard this. It was obvious that their attention had been diverted by Penelope's words. After Yang Tian returned home to recuperate, we have been investigating the truth of the matter. We unexpectedly discovered that Qi Luo seemed to be involved in this matter. A few days ago, we found him sneaking around again, and we thought he was going to harm Yang Tian again, so we decided to follow Qi Luo temporarily. We never thought that there was such a big trap here. After hearing this, several people suddenly realized what was going on. Yang Tian and other friends also quietly gave a thumbs up. It must be said that with Penelope here, it's really nice. So what are you going to do next? Cedric asked curiously. What else can we do? Leave everything to the school and the Ministry of Magic. We are just a group of little wizards, what else can we do? Yang Tian said helplessly. No matter what, we can't just let this go. It's all Yang Tian's fault. Angelina suddenly shouted, arrange some Chinese food for me. Ha ha ha. The friends were all amused by Angelina's funny look. Senior, don't steal our lines. The Weasley brothers exclaimed. The play helped to eliminate the gap between the old and new members of the study group, but some were happy while others were sad. In sharp contrast to the joy here, Harry and Ron in the corner were in a low mood. But Ron grabbed Harry's shoulders and shook him hard. He asked hysterically, Harry, do you believe what the newspaper said? Ron, we should stay calm. The Daily Prophet and the announcement from the Ministry of Magic are all telling us that this is true. Harry said in a low voice, I just didn't expect that Snape really had nothing to do with this. Hearing this, Ron immediately sat down on the ground like a deflated ball. Maybe there are other possibilities. No, Ron. Harry interrupted Ron and said, there is no other possibility. We should let it go. Harry, you. Ron's eyes were full of disappointment and confusion. Ron, listen to me. No matter how much you hate Yang Tian, all of this has become a fact. Just like no matter how much I hate Snape, he has nothing to do with this matter. I know that we have been investigating this matter for so long, but it ended up like this. It is normal that we can't accept it. But everything is really over. Harry looked at Ron seriously and said. Look at us now. Don't you think we have fallen too far behind? Let's not talk about the little wizards around Yang Tian for now. Let's just talk about us in Gryffindor, Seamus Finnegan, Dean Thomas, and even Lavender Brown. They all admire Yang Tian and are working hard to catch up with the pace of that study group, hoping that one day they can join this group with their own strength. What do you mean by that? Ron asked. I want to tell you that we are in Hogwarts now, and this is a magic school. Only if we have strong strength can we gain everyone's recognition. Harry said firmly. Harry, aren't you being too absolute? Except for Seamus Finnegan, the people you just mentioned aren't as hardworking as you say, right? I often see them playing wizard chess, chatting, or going out at night. For some reason, Ron felt that Harry seemed to be more abnormal than himself today. Harry's statement seemed a little too extreme. He no longer cared about being angry, but comforted Harry instead. No, Ron. You've always known that I don't want to bear the reputation of a so-called savior. I didn't know what was going on at all. Now it seems that the so-called victory of me over Voldemort and saving the wizarding world is just a complete joke, isn't it? Harry's voice lowered. Don't talk nonsense, Harry. You didn't say this yourself. It's all been clearly recorded in various books and magazines. It's a fact recognized by the wizarding world. Ron advised. That's not important. What's important is that I have the reputation of a savior, but I don't have the strength to match it. We need to be strong. Harry said stubbornly. But we are just first-year wizards. Ron said a little at a loss. Yang Tian is also a first-year wizard. But he and his friends did it a few days ago. Harry persisted. Harry. Ron didn't know how to persuade Harry anymore. Ron, you asked me before, now I ask you. Come with me, we need to be strong. Harry said with finality. Ron was also helpless. Today's Harry really made him feel strange, but this was his best friend. Without saying anything more, Ron followed Harry's footsteps with a heavy heart. Chapter 220. Everything that happened during the day was just a passing cloud to Yang Tian, and it could not affect Yang Tian's action plan for the night. Tonight he wanted to be a Lone Ranger. Since Quirrell and Voldemort had been temporarily eliminated, why not take advantage of the victory and capture a new secret base and another helper of Voldemort? But it was too dangerous for other friends, so he could only go there alone. That's right, Yang Tian's target tonight was the secret room. He already had a comprehensive plan for this. However, before that, he needed to solve a small problem, the myrtle in the girls' bathroom on the second floor. For Yang Tian now, this was too simple. But Yang Tian, who had cast an advanced illusion spell, sat on the somersault cloud, quietly came to the door of the bathroom, and pasted a talisman for peace and security at the door of the bathroom. Then, the next moment, a magical scene happened. Hey, why is this room so hot all of a sudden? And why do I suddenly feel uncomfortable all over? No, I can't stand staying here for another minute, I have to leave immediately. Myrtle muttered as she quickly left the bathroom. Yang Tian smiled and went straight to the pool to check. As expected, just like in the original book, he saw the faucet with a small snake engraved on it. After taking out the live map to check again, Yang Tian finally made that strange hissing sound in the old snake voice, open it. As soon as he finished speaking, the faucet began to spin rapidly under the shining white light. Then, the entire pool also began to spin rapidly. As time passed, the pool slowly disappeared, revealing a thick water pipe that could only accommodate one person. Everything was as expected. Without any hesitation, Yang Tian grabbed the edge of the water pipe and got in. Then he loosened his hands and his body slid down in this long pipe. During the rapid descent, Yang Tian could vaguely feel the surrounding pipes, but none of them were as thick as the one he was traveling through. As the thick pipe continued to extend downward, twisting and turning, and falling rapidly after a huge steep slope, Yang Tian finally stopped at the edge of a tunnel. The surroundings were pitch black, and Yang Tian was not troubled at all. He drew out his magic wand at the right time and shouted Lumos. With the help of the powerful illumination spell, he could finally see everything clearly. It was a long and deep stone tunnel. The road inside the tunnel was littered with the bones of small animals. Coupled with the dim environment, the gloomy and terrifying atmosphere was fully revealed. If he was not familiar with the plot of the secret room, he would probably be frightened, right? Yang Tian walked quickly along the tunnel. He didn't know how long he had walked. When he turned another corner, a huge stone wall with a relief of two snakes entwined with each other blocked his way. The eyes of the snakes in the relief were inlaid with shining emeralds, and the overall effect was lifelike. Yang Tian simply admired it for a while, then said again in a low, hoarse voice, open it. As soon as the words fell, the two snakes separated and ran in opposite directions. The stone wall even split directly in the middle, and a huge entrance came into Yang Tian's sight. Entering the mysterious and ancient Slytherin chamber, Yang Tian began to be cautious. The first thing he did was to use the Eagle Eyes spell to create a pair of huge eyes in the air, and he quickly closed his eyes. No one can guarantee whether the basilisk will suddenly jump out and attack you. If you are accidentally petrified, or simply stared to death, there will be no place to complain, and Yang Tian dare not gamble. From the perspective of Eagle Eye, the entire hall is long and narrow, with exquisitely carved snake-like stone pillars towering to support the dome in the darkness. The hazy green mist-like feeling adds to the mystery of the hall, and an eerie atmosphere blows in the face. Following the guidance of Eagle Eye, Yang Tian slowly walked to the depths of the hall, and saw a dome-high statue standing close to the stone wall behind it. It was an image of an old wizard, with a monkey-like face and a sparse long beard that almost dragged to the hem of the wizard's robe, and two grey big feet standing on the smooth floor of the room. Next to this huge statue was a huge black shadow. Yang Tian was stunned and looked at it carefully. Oh my god, isn't this a basilisk? But looking at its motionless posture, could it be in a deep sleep? Yang Tian was delighted and quickly took out the beast-taming ring from the white jade ring. It was one of the 9 birthday gifts his grandfather had given him. At this moment, the motionless snake monster seemed to be awakened, and turned around in a flash, facing Yang Tian with its huge snake head. The huge snake monster was covered with scales, and its eyes flashed with a fierce light. It opened its bloody mouth and let out a low hissing sound, "Damn intruder, I will kill you." Fuck, a kind of plant, why did it wake up at this critical moment? Even a few seconds later would have been fine. With thousands of thoughts in his mind, Yang Tian's hands moved very quickly. He pushed his left hand forward, and the beast-taming ring flew into the air by itself. At the same time, Yang Tian also quickly pulled out the ancient magic wand and quickly retreated. But his mouth was not idle either, and a hissing sound immediately rang out in the hall, "Basilisk, submit to me, I am a real snake." The basilisk was naturally not a good person. Although it didn't know what the flying ring on its head was, it didn't prevent it from feeling the danger. But that thing was hanging in the air, and it was flying very fast, and it seemed that it couldn't do anything about it. So it stomped its tail and shot directly at the culprit Yang Tian. At the same time, it hissed, "Human, you are indeed a snake, but you don't have the blood of the Slytherin family. So, die." Yang Tian had already made some guesses about the attack of the basilisk. He cast a barrier spell to distance himself from the basilisk, and at the same time, he used transfiguration to transform the corpses on the ground into various magical animals such as fire ash snakes, evil birds, ice silkworms, nightmares, etc. My goodness, this sudden appearance of the army of magical animals stunned the basilisk. The basilisk was violent by nature, and it could not stand the provocation of other magical animals. They soon fought together, and the death stare and the tail swing of the divine snake caused heavy casualties to the army of magical animals. Transfiguration was only transfiguration after all, and there was still a big gap compared to the real magical animals. Of course, in contrast, the extreme freezing of the ice silkworm, the burning of the fire ash snake, the sonic attack of the evil bird, etc., also left the basilisk covered with wounds. But as time went by, the basilisk suddenly realized that it seemed to have been fooled. Although those damn magical animals fell in groups, it seemed that there was a constant stream of new forces joining in. With this thought in mind, the basilisk no longer paid attention to the magical animals that were pouncing on it, but rushed towards Yang Tian like lightning. But it overlooked one important point. After such a long time, has the beast-taming ring really become a decoration? In an instant, the ring that completely locked the basilisk's aura quickly grew larger and rushed down with the force of thunder. In the blink of an eye, the ring passed over the snake's head like a hoop and reached the basilisk's 7 inches. At this time, the ring of the taming ring began to tighten violently. Not only that, a ray of irresistible mental power was directly absorbed into the snake monster's brain. Such a fierce attack caused the basilisk to strongly reject it. It struggled violently like a madman, stumbling around like a drunk. But unfortunately, it was of no avail. The more the basilisk struggled, the tighter the beast control ring shrank, and the sharper the spiritual power became. Gradually, the basilisk's struggle weakened, and finally stopped completely. Yang breathed a sigh of relief, walked over to the basilisk, and gently stroked its scales. The basilisk seemed to sense something, and a faint hissing sound came, "Master." As the words fell, another spiritual force from the taming ring entered Yang Tian's mind, and he and the basilisk finally established a spiritual bond.